Welcome to the Independent Characters, episode 235. Adepticon Down Under. Things didn't quite go as planned for me, but we're going to talk a bit about Adepticon. I know both of you have gone. I know Aaron went. Adon was there.
We had a big crew this year. Yeah.
Diane Campos. Was great.
Sky, Craig,
That's
Ivan.
awesome. It's awesome. So
Dan.
we'll talk a bit about that. But before we get into that, this show's sponsored by two people, both Patreons, but I handpicked these two, and I'll explain why. Craig Maloney and Jeremy Wood. So as most people who listen to the show previously know, we just came back. Well, I just came back from vacation with my wife when we went to Australia. We are based out of California. It's a bit of a haul. So we went for 3 weeks. I think I told you 9 plane rides in 3 weeks to get all over the country. Formula One. I went to Games Workshop out there. I met with Michael Bask and Emma Bask out there, and they run Objective Secured. They're also Warhammer Hero Award winners.
Oh yeah,
so
nice.
It was kind of nice to just connect.
Reunion of heroes.
That's right. But Craig and his lovely wife, Kelly, and their daughter, Michaela, put up with us in their house for a week. They put us up for a week, which was really nice. And it set up all these tours and things for us to do. And there was one day where nothing was going on. And Craig was like, I feel bad that I don't have anything planned. I'm like, please don't plan anything.
Sometimes it's nice to have a day off on vacation.
We need a break.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, amazing. Like, I got to see all his actual work. Jeremy is the reason we have the Hall of Legends.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we just kept mentioning his stuff over and over again.
How is Warhammer World Down Under?
It is impressive. It's impressive.
I can only imagine seeing those in person.
I will say the photos do it justice.
Oh, that's
like
good.
it is a great representation of what is there.
The photos look incredible.
Yes, because normally my photos look terrible. He has just a tremendous amount of artistic skill. Waiting for my dog to go settle down. That's the clicking you're hearing in the background. At least it's not whining yet. But incredible amount of artistic skill. He's got a really cool little studio where he's painting and setting stuff up and what he's planning for that.
Dude, the boat studio is on point.
So Jeremy is also, for those of you who don't know, I don't know if there's a particular title, but basically he owns a company that manages some boats in the yacht area in the harbor of Sydney for ultra wealthy people. He was able to take us out on the harbor in basically a $5 million boat that it was massive, had 3 stories to it. Like it was insane. I've never been on a boat like that. It was insane. And he owns a sailboat. And when I think sailboat, I think like a little thing, like this thing's like 80 feet long. It's like he and his wife and kids are going to go on a 3-month trip with this among these islands and stuff. And like, he's a sailor. He sailed all his life. So like it was incredible. Like to see him in his element too, when he was driving us around the harbor, like the instruments and everything, it was, the boat was mad. I'm like, how do you steer this thing?
Doing
and it
something with jib booms. And
it pivots. Absolutely amazing. Like the day we were supposed to do it, it poured raining. He was going to take us out on a sailboat, but it was pouring. And so he said, that's not very fun on a sailboat, but and the other boat that he was managing was chartered out, right? And so we delayed it to when we came back. But that day that we were supposed to go out, like he and his family took Shell and I around to beaches and showed us shops and all this stuff. His kid accidentally shoplifted some kangaroo testicles from a shop.
It's the most Australian sentence I think you're going to be able to muster.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that happen?
There's a whole bunch going on there. I think I'm going to, Josh, you and I will sit down and record an hour and a half or so about this trip because it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was eye-opening. And Australia's a great place, aside from the gigantic spiders. Australia's a great place.
The size of your face.
Yeah.
Did you have an experience?
I saw a few.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But that's what I got.
No close encounters.
It's got to no.
Yeah.
And snakes don't really bother me, although every snake there is venomous. So it's like, okay. Anyway, we'll sit down. We'll talk about it. We'll release
Having
that for
listened to
our
Dungeon
patrons.
Crawler, Carl, I appreciate that you said venomous instead of poisonous.
Yes. There you go. Well, it's like you walk down to a beach and there's, it's very much like Northern California beach type of look. There's like scrub that goes right into the beach.
Yeah.
And you'll see signs everywhere that are like, watch for snakes. Like,
Right.
Okay. That's not like California.
Yeah. I'm fine with snakes until they're in the water, and that's right.
Oh,
It's
that
like,
would be.
It's like scuba diving in Thailand. You just have venomous snakes swimming everywhere next to you. And like,
Oh, no.
sketchy.
No. Okay. So anyway, so this episode, all we're going to talk about really is Adepticon. I want to hear what you guys did. I had huge missing out vibes, as I was seeing pictures and stuff from everybody, from the community and everybody. So
It was all a lie. It was terrible.
Anyway, all right, let's leap into Elite Choice. And I'll go ahead and go first. I chose Pascal Demnick and his Legio Magna Titan, Ashes of Innocence. Now, he's since posted another
So
Titan.
Warlord also, I believe.
but holy smokes, the level of detail on this thing is incredible.
Absolutely incredible.
And the basing, like he has like a little set that he put him on for some of the photos, and the basing is so well done. Just like, this is clearly a tremendous labor of love.
Yeah.
And wow, like as a Chaos Titan, it is freaking phenomenal looking.
So having just come back from Adepticon and therefore seeing the Golden Demons in person, which
Yes.
was a thing this year. Wow. The Legio Magna Titan Ashes of Innocence here is the detail, the freehand on top, the weathering.
Yep.
It's
the whole
great.
package.
That is a beautiful piece.
The checkers, the streaking grime, the water effects on the base, the rust, the weathering. Like, it's the
terrain
freehand on
under-
the top of the carapace.
Yeah. Can I tell you, I am
Wow.
The conversion.
Yeah.
I'm kind of terrified of like doing weathering. Like when I'll paint something up and I'm like, it's done. And then like that next step, which is I'm going to mess this all up, I know.
Gloss varnish safe
I know.
paint.
I know. It's just,
Yeah.
but then I see something like this and I'm like, I really should do weathering.
The fact that all this is brought in this is an Adeptus Titanicus Reaver, so the scale of this is obviously much smaller, being an 8mm model. All the more impressive for getting all that packed into there, and that's absolutely the kind of work these models deserves. They rarely get it to this degree because this is truly, I think, something special. But the models have that potential, and somebody really taking advantage to take the time to bring that to life like this is really impressive.
And if you haven't assembled one of these models, I mean, it's a project.
Yeah.
Each one is a project. It is not like I can slap together a rhino in 20 minutes, like sprue to table, 20 minutes. I can put a rhino together. Not these.
Yeah, that ain't happening with one of
You
these.
got to set aside time. You got to plan. You're not going to mass build them. You're going to build one at a time.
That was actually, in past, I've talked about my mental block of getting these Adeptus Titanicus Titans finished into the table, but the notion of each one being a project and just focus on one and really enjoy doing one at a time.
Yeah.
That was actually, I wish I had started with that mindset. It helps a ton.
Here's my whole army.
Yeah. And never getting anywhere because it's just sub-assembly hell.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a shining example of like just one beautiful project.
Yeah, take the time, do one, do it right, move on.
Yep. Yeah. Well, congratulations, Pascal. This is fantastic. Just fantastic. We were all blown away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh, what do you got?
Yep. So I went with Bill Morlock and his Sons of Medusa that he's been working on, and specifically the more recent additions to this, where he's been doing a lot with photography, integrating the models with terrain, and then also using some lens effects, FX, to bring flames and psychic powers and crackling lightning and things like that to life.
I do like the lens effects thing.
Yeah.
When it first came out, it did get quite overused quite a bit.
Yeah.
But every now and then it's kind of nice.
But when you take the time and you're setting stuff up with good light and you're integrating your models with terrain, and the lens FX are minimal. So the flame is obviously like very,
well, it's flame.
it has some presence, which it should, which is pretty neat. It's not overdone. It's a nice balance, and it feels very 40K, like things being a little bit crazy and over the top is very fitting. And Bill has absolutely done an incredible job with the models and terrain that he's placed this. And it's really nice photography too. So it's kind of checking all the boxes for me as a photographer, miniature wargamer, etc.
I'm a fan of Bill's stuff in general.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot. He's been mentioned. He actually has many elite choices at this point now. Might be in danger. And I hadn't seen anything from him in a while, but in the last couple of months, I feel like he's kind of really come back out and he's just swinging for the fences. Everything he's put out has been incredible. So,
the Sons of Medusa, the new stuff's looking so good. Tangential, but part of this picture, we talked about this wandering around Adepticon. How good is this MDF terrain in the background, though?
Yeah.
That's that pressboard wooden stuff. And man, the paint job accentuates it so well. The lens effects on like the lights at the gatehouse. And I'm just blown away with how far that technology has come. That
it doesn't look like the Lego laser cut. Like,
right.
I hate working with that stuff.
They've hidden the seams so well in the design of this terrain.
Yeah, that stuff's really
But like
nice.
just the assembly of it to me is just, it's awful.
And it's so heavy.
I absolutely hate it. But you know who else like really does it well is Brian Harvey. He integrates it into other like rock terrain and stuff. It just looks his stuff looks so good too. But I hate working with it. But when I see this, I'm like, okay.
But it looks real good.
It can look really good and not like everything else you see.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's not like more GW terrain. Not
right.
And listen, like, I should shut up about that because I was listening to another podcast. I can't remember which, and they were talking about cities of death and that kind of stuff from a long time ago. And I remembered back to the days where like we didn't have a lot of city terrain. All we had were like rocks and like this kind of stuff. And that's what we played on. So for us to play in like an urban environment was something like super special. And now it's like, I think I take for granted how much terrain we have and what we can.
And how easy it is to access it. And
yeah. So this looks fantastic.
Yeah. It's a great set.
Just congrats, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it up. Can't wait to see what comes next.
Jody, you.
Yeah, hot off the heels of Adepticon and some Legions Imperialis. Julian Apps, 1,500 points of white scars finished up and colorized tokens.
How did he do the tokens? Like
he didn't say, and it looks
contrast
like
paint.
Yeah, that's my guess is that it was airbrush contrast paint over the existing tokens.
Is that so?
That would be my guess.
They are all just gray, so it would
clever.
It would take a clear,
a
translucent paint pretty well, and then just seal it up. So
how clever is that, though?
Yeah, easy answer. And as I think he said in his post, it is the answer. Like the color coding your tokens is such a huge help,
as we have both done. And at a quick glimpse, it's so clear what you're doing, what your opponent's doing. It's easier to pick the orders. It makes the game go a little bit faster. Like
it's a quality of life upgrade for sure. And then his white scars are just beautifully done. Like at Legions Imperialis, white scars look so good, especially if you're willing to take the time with all those little details and the dags and chevrons and bite marks, which are unique on every one of his vehicles, he pointed out. Also, his basing on his infantry. In the photo with the bases, the order tokens showing, you can really see the base work he's done.
Yeah.
Really
solid.
Really solid. Great contrast. That was something that got talked a lot about at the Adepticon event. I was talking to people about painting and how their forces looked. That's one of the challenges with Legions Imperialis is you really do have to be pretty thoughtful about how you're basing your army, just because at that scale, if they're close in tone, it's going to wash out huge.
Right.
I think Ivan, like not long before Adepticon, rebased his entire army because it was too similar.
Yeah, the Iron Warriors were too close to the gray of the base, so he made a kind of a warm brown, and it looks really good.
So these white armor suits on this dark base,
concrete. Yeah.
But then that framing around the edge of a little bit of dry brush or something.
Edge.
It all
highlighting on the each of those bases on the edges to really
sets off what's an otherwise excellent paint job.
There's something about the white scars at that scale that just I've seen several of these now. Isn't that what Austin's doing?
Yes.
Austin Lynn?
Yeah.
Yes. Austin Lynn has that.
His looks amazing. There's something about that scale and that color scheme that really, really works well. I don't know why, but it
absolutely
fantastic.
As we'll get to in games played, I played against 2 White Scar players at Adepticon. And they were great looking armies.
Yeah.
That white just works. Just works.
And then I didn't note down who painted these, but Shell was absolutely fascinated with. I'll look it up between breaks and we'll talk about it. But Shell was absolutely fascinated with this Tyranid painted in these glow in the dark colors as well, and just really, really loved the whole scheme there. There was another Tyranid she was looking at, and then this one came up. She liked them both, but she was like, "This is really unique. I haven't seen this before." I will mention before the next segment, as we roll into the next segment, who painted this.
The name on that.
I'm so sorry. I neglected to put it in the notes.
That's so hard to do.
Shell
There you go.
neglected to put it in the notes.
Yeah, that's going to go well for you.
She won't listen.
It
You know
is
what? I've been with her for 3 weeks straight, but
yeah, whatever you. That's a good point.
I do have to tell you, I'm a very lucky guy. Like, I have the perfect partner here, and she, one of the things I was like, we're going to spend 3 weeks in close proximity every day together. Aren't you going to go nuts? She's like, no, I love being around you, Paul. We had a great time.
Yeah.
Like, and still, when she had to go to work the other day, it was like, well, this is weird. You're leaving.
Yeah. Where are you going?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Where are you going? What? I gotta be here alone.
Yeah. That was my Monday.
So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you were talking about the technique.
It's really hard to pull this off because the normal lighting on the model looks fantastic. It looks great.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful Lictor, really well painted, or whatever that.
I think it's Death Leaper.
I think it is Death
Leaper.
The new Death Leaper.
To get the fluorescent and the ultraviolet paints to work and to read correctly.
Double duty.
Yeah. And it's tough to get those to work. So often when that technique is used or something like that's done, it looks so garish, right? That in contrast, whereas this has been done super thoughtfully. And man, if this is part of a entire army that's going to be applied in that way, how freaking cool would that be to just
hit the black light and
that would be sick.
And even just is because there's handheld black lights and you could wave over things as you're playing, or there would be ways to integrate that into the game itself.
Robert Garcia.
There it is.
Looked it up. Thank you. Sorry about that, Robert, because your work deserved appreciation and recognition there.
Yeah,
so.
this would have been, actually, it was funny. I was telling you guys before we started recording that it was tough because all three of you picked. I was like, yep. Okay. Come on. Thankfully, Julian was there from with an awesome looking army too. But yeah, Robert's Death Leaper here is fantastic. Great basing too.
Yeah. So we're tracking everybody who gets mentioned, and if it's not a hard and fast rule, you get mentioned 3 times, you get into the Hall of Legends. It's based on the tempo of the work you're doing and our kind of inner discussion here. But I'd say at the minimum, once you get recognized 3 times, that
puts you in the running.
That puts you in the running for Hall of Legends, and Hall of Legends people we send special shirt prize to, and with name tag and everything. Once they order the name tags, those take forever. But yeah, I saw you guys in a picture in Adepticon were wearing the shirts during the Space Hulk game.
Oh yeah.
They look good.
Yeah. They look good.
You guys look sharp,
Comfortable too.
Yeah, they're comfy.
Yeah.
And they
not too heavy.
Not too heavy.
Right.
They breathe well.
Yeah.
And having the giant logo on the back was obviously good for some people finding us and coming up there.
Good.
I realized from the front, there's no IC's logo.
There is not.
So it was having a lot of conversations. People obviously would immediately know my name and be like,
yeah.
I just
show
have
your
to
right
flex
arm.
the right arm in here. Work this into the conversation.
What time?
Why is Josh always flexing? Justin's going to have a sleeveless one,
That's
so
right,
he doesn't
man.
have
even fewer logos. No, these are awesome though.
Yeah.
Glad they went over well.
Couldn't be happier.
All right, well, let's do this. Let's take a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll launch into hobby progress games played.
Sounds great.
Spins up.
All right, welcome back, and let's just leap right into hobby progress to begin. And I'll go first because, again, I've been out 3 weeks, but before I left, I was doing some work because I wanted to have something for the segment when I got back. Plus, I'm trying to get my sisters a battle ready for painting.
I just realized I forgot to bring the Vashdor bits that you were after.
Right.
Yeah, whenever I see you next.
That's
time.
all right. not a hurry on that.
I pulled them out and just forgot them when I was grabbing all the gear.
So I assembled the Sisters of Battle Exorcist tank.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it to go together?
Earlier in this episode, I said I can assemble a rhino in 20 minutes. And that's no joke. Like I've assembled so many flipping rhinos at this point. And that's not an exaggeration. Like I'd say 15 if I didn't have to cut it off the sprue. Like, and that's tracks and everything. This model, I thought, oh, it's going to be on a rhino chassis. It's not going to be that bad. This model has so much detail on it. The sisters, like they went overboard on the details.
Yeah.
Like in a good way. I like it that way. But my God, it is so, it's not complicated. It goes together brilliantly, but it is in so many pieces. And every time I thought I've got to be nearing completion, I would flip the page on the instructions and see, oh my God, there's still 2 more pages of bits and things and adding this, that, and the other thing. That like, if you're not aware, like the old one it was metal. So you had a rhino with a metal, right.
The organ gun on top,
organ missile gun, you know, which is just ridiculous to begin with. Like this thing does not belong in battle. And so it totally
peak
belongs.
40K.
Yes.
Maximum Baroque.
This one is like every time you add something, you're like, okay, this has to be all the. Oh no, wait! Now I'm going to add these flying cherubs attached to the thing at the top. Oh, now I got this, hunter killer missile I put on the side. Now I've got these little bits. The smoke launchers come in 3 pieces. It's just like one thing after another to get it together. But I did get it all together. I swear, I had the worst discipline on glue.
Oh yeah.
Like I've got glue all over the place. Like I gotta sand some stuff down before I base it. I made a mess out of some of it when I go to do my next one. Cause I thank God, only have one more. And I tried to do it the other day. Like I was like, I've got some time. Maybe I should start assembling this. And I looked at the box and I was like, no, I'm not over it yet.
Not
over it yet.
Not excited for that assembly.
I am not. But that's the last one I have to do. So
last we recorded, you were talking about the battle suits being pretty onerous.
Oh my God, those things too.
So which is winning?
So you're loving the Sisters.
The Exorcist.
So
the Exorcist was by far more, but those battle suits did take a while.
It's like a battle suit built into a tank. Is that kind of
you take a rhino and
you've got
take the battle suit torso and stick it on top.
And then on top of that, you put a pipe organ.
You also have the sister in there,
right,
working the keyboard to launch the stuff or play music or whatever she's doing over there.
Little column A, little column B.
And it was funny because I was like about to put it in, and Shell goes, "Why would you glue that in first before you paint?" I go, "Oh, you're right."
Like, I was just going to ask that about sub-assemblies.
Do not do that. You could go insane with the sub-assembly on this thing. You could literally go insane. So no, everything but her has been, and removing her from the cockpit gives me plenty of access to paint. I think what I need to paint internally. It's going to be a beast to paint. Like I'm not even, I'm in some ways I'm looking forward to it. Like in some ways I'm looking forward to the challenge, but then I'm like, and I have to do 2 of them. Maybe I should find something else to put in this army.
Oh, buddy, a pack of Sharpies and you'll be halfway done.
I'm not doing it. I don't need Sharpies. I do.
Needs got nothing to do with it.
I do like them.
I just like being done.
Yeah, but the AK gold. That's so good.
Okay.
It's so good. It's so easy to apply. 1 coat, done.
Solid.
I know.
There you go.
Well, everybody gave me a bunch of crap about when I was doing my my chaos stuff. They're all using Sharpie. I'm like, I didn't use Sharpie on any of it.
Not a Sharpie in sight.
No. Not that there's anything wrong with that in the Seinfeld context.
Feeling a little attacked.
No. I mean, I think
I used Sharpies once. Excuse me, and I regretted it because they doesn't stick as well.
I have not had that issue.
It's like anything else. There's
once you see
a technique you can. I mean, you can screw up coloring crayons if you try hard enough.
I wonder if we use coloring crayons. No, anyway.
Oh, colored pencils.
Yeah.
That's the new thing. It's new products coming out.
What's old is new again.
Yeah, the watercolor pencils.
But no, I mean, like the color the Sharpie provides is not quite the color I want. That's probably the only reason I haven't, gone to using it at this point. But also I'm able to reach kind of recesses and stuff with a brush better than I can with.
Yeah, no, that is definitely, and there are some on that tank.
Oh my God. I'm telling you, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun experiment, but it's gonna be exhausting, I think.
I think it's kind of funny on some level. This is like the old Pimp Your Ride exhibit of, yo dog, we heard you like trim because of you working on your Chaos Army. And then now you've got the sisters, which are like, so we put some trim on top of your trim.
But the sisters don't have a lot of trim so much as they just have a lot of different details.
Little details.
Like the trim is actually, I'll bet you the trim is actually easier than this, because at least you're just doing one color and it's a bunch of it. Here it's like, now I got to switch to this color. Now I got to switch to this. Now it's going to be glorious when it's done.
I can't wait, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. I just got to do one, make sure it's not one exercise. Like I got to do one model completely. So I have
get your scheme all dialed in.
My scheme all dialed in.
Get your test models.
Yeah. All right. What about you, Josh? What have you been working on?
Yeah. Post Adepticon, I needed a little palette cleanser.
You were saying you were going to knock out your Sharkadon so that you could play.
So my plan was, while Carla was gone, I would finish my Sharkadons to get them to the 2K point, which they are very close to. And I
couldn't do it.
Post Adepticon, I needed to do something else.
Fair enough.
So I decided not to do that, and I will wait till the passion is there, and I will absolutely get those across the finish line. The army's so close to being done, and then as soon as everything's painted to that level, I'm going to go in and do all the freehand exile markings, which is kind of the Maori style exile markings, and then all the blood effects. So like I'm really excited for that step, but I want to have everything done before I do that step, and I'll do that all together as kind of one big batch of freehand and blood, which is going to be super fun, but not quite there yet. So what I did instead was I assembled a ton of Alien vs. Predator models. These are old resin models from Protoss games.
So good looking models.
They are
incredible models. Yeah, it was a terrible game that we played a handful of times, and
the other one, the Gale Force 9 one, is great.
Yeah, which these models would be fully compatible for.
Yeah.
But the reason I've been doing this is because I have been working on a skirmish rule set for the last 10 years that I've come back and revisited too. And I finally landed about 4 years ago. It's like, I actually want to port this. It was kind of like a Mad Max near future post-apocalyptic kind of setting originally. And I was like, actually, these Alien vs. Predator models are incredible. Like, I'm just going to port the game to this one. I'm obviously not trying to publish this to make any money, because the licensing fee on that would just
it would murder everything.
It would take all the profit out of the game. But super fun, and it was really fun. Just after Adepticon Sunday for Adepticon, we'll get into, I was able to just kind of wander around and check out a bunch of skirmish games that were happening in the main hall there, and that was kind of really inspiring for me, because skirmish games have always been my sweet spot, jam. My happy place. So
that is, by the way, one thing I really enjoy about Adepticon is going and trying stuff that I may not even play, but just trying new experiences is kind of nice.
Yeah, 100%. So this was that Sunday of just wandering around was really good kind of motivation for me to you know what, I've been really wanting to revisit this game, and I've been wanting to get the models painted. And you have the Alien role-playing game that the models would also be really good for, to have visual representations when combat and things like that happens, and that's as we've been talking about. So these are models that I've had for 8 years now, and it's long overdue that they get some paint on them. So that was definitely let's make it happen.
But the game they came with was not good.
No,
a great first draft.
Yeah. There were some serious problems with it. They had a plan of doing a war game and a board game, and they released the models for the board game. And this was the V1. It was a Kickstarter 8 years ago. Models were absolutely incredible. Game needed some work, but had some cool ideas in it at the same time. The war game never came to be because the company ended up shutting down, spinning off into something else. And
that's weird.
And I think a lot of it was because they lost all their money to licensing. So they made some really cool models, and it just never went anywhere.
Gotcha.
But I'm happy to have the models, and I'll take the rules my own direction with that one. So
yeah, I would say of any AVP genre licensed models I've seen. I would say they're the best.
So the
quality of model
that's where the focus was.
Yes, absolutely.
I bought into a Kickstarter, which was like this ninjas versus samurai game. And that was the first time I'd gotten a Kickstarter that like I saw the rules and like we could not figure out the rules. We were just like, and I'd watch guys who were like, oh, this is how you play it. And they're like, oh no, this is not right. You know,
this is a model company trying to patch together some rules to make you play with it.
It's hard to write rules.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And this
absolutely.
And this is why and I'm not using that as an excuse, but when people are like, oh, GW doesn't know how to write rules, I'm like, they do, but it's hard.
It's
you know,
especially when your games are that big and that many people are trying to break them, and you have so many different approaches to
interactions between stuff.
And mindsets of like people are trying to like find the broken combination, and some people are trying to play casually, and you want to balance it for both. So
it's tough.
It's hard. Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway.
So in addition to that, one of the skirmish games that I ended up checking out, played a demo game at Adepticon, was Bushido. And this is kind of has a lot of mysticism elements of
they've been there
East
before,
Asian culture. They've
been around for quite a while.
They've been around. I think 2015 is when they kicked off.
They've been at Adepticon before.
Yeah, it's been about 9 years of existence, and I think they plan a lot of their major releases for the next year at Adepticon, like their announcements and stuff. Relatively small company, but it's a really fun little skirmish game that has a lot of tactical depth and nuance to it. There's a ton of keywords and special abilities, so there's a little bit of a learning curve to the game. But the models are great. It's really fun. I love how it brings the theme to life. After playing the skirmish game, or playing the demo, Sky walked me over and he's like, "Oh, have you checked this out?" And I'd heard good things about it, and some people were playing it there in a little event at Adepticon. So I did end up playing a skirmish game, and immediately it was like, "Oh, this is super fun." Like you only need 6 models. Like I'm in for it.
Models are gorgeous.
Yeah, models are great. So I ended up 3D printing some terrain and printing up
models resin.
The ones that I got were metal.
Oh, interesting.
It's a mix between resin or metal, depending on which faction you end up picking up with.
Okay.
So the ones I got were metal. I had not worked with metal models in a while, but I've got these. They're the Kinshi Temple. They're kind of void monks. They're all about kind of the end of time and things like that. And they work, I think, differently than almost every warband that there is out there in the game. But it was really fun. And as I picked them up on Tuesday, and I had like finished painting and had them varnished by end of day Wednesday, so that I could play a game with Sky on Thursday. So.
That is crazy fast.
So yeah, it was just, again, kind of part of the palette cleanser from post Adepticon. Like I've just been working on Legions Imperialis for so long.
This is
true. Really fun to do something different and do it quickly, and and working with metal models and working with organic cloaks and not power armor and tanks and things like that. So it was just a fun way to mix things up.
Painting that metal demon prince that I painted, like I just did not feel like paint applied as well as it does to plastic, even with primer on it. Like, I struggled with it.
I think that old argument of there was a time we talked about this a couple episodes ago of plastic models, and that's like back in the early 90s. It was like, plastic, gross, metal models.
And you're charging how much for plastic?
Right. It's and then there was an era where there was like a debate over like, but metal's kind of got its own charm and the detail, and then plastics. That I think that's done.
Plastics have just they're just what they can do with them now is just so far.
Yeah. I think now
and resins for small companies now that the cost is what it is.
Right.
But there's plastic resins and resin compounds that you can make that it's just better to work with. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't long ago. I built a multi-part metal model and was like, oh this is awful. I forgot.
It really is.
Of the 7 models, I think 3 of them were multi-part, and one of them like immediately was like the torso and the legs. Like I glued it there, used some hardener to just kick it in there faster, and then it like immediately separated.
Popped right off.
I was like, okay. Second time worked great, but
so this is what we're gonna do.
But anyways, it was super fun just to do something different, and again, skirmish games have always been a passion of mine. So being able to kind of get that renewed source of inspiration at Adepticon, and then immediately kind of apply that to some hobby and some games was super cool.
And you know what's funny is I've come to realize that a lot of listeners to the show came to 40K around 8th edition, some 8th, 9th edition, which is for somebody who's been in the hobby now, I can say a while, like that's it's hard for me to grasp. Oh yeah, that's right. So for those people who came in, you've only worked with this plastic and you haven't ever worked with combination plastic metal models. You lucky. You guys are so lucky.
Oh, those were the worst kits. The Predator kit that has like the sponsons were like 4 or 5 pieces each. Of
no. Remember the Devastators, the old metal plastic combo Devastators for Space Marines?
Where the arm would always fall off.
Yeah, the weapons.
That was the heavy weapon.
That you had a plastic frame of a Space Marine and then a metal weaponry to glue onto the plastic. Those were
Land Raider Crusader.
Oh yeah,
with the metal bolter,
the 75-pound hurricane bolter on each side.
That were all individual bolter pieces you had to glue to the. It was awful.
In my Hobby Progress, I found one of those. Just the hurricane bolter bit was in a bits box I was digging through.
And the metal multi-melter that sat on top.
Yeah. Insta-break.
I could never get it to work.
Perfect.
Josh, you built some other stuff though.
Yeah. So continuing on the skirmish game trend, decided to kick off the old Summer Necromunda campaign that we've been alluding to. So in anticipation of that, I built up my Outcast gang, which these are like the trashiest little hive scum models.
I love that stuff.
Like they're going to be so terrible. It's funny because the gang is all about the leader. So I actually used the Adepticon event mini as my gang leader, which is the Victoria miniature.
Nice.
And she kind of perfect sculpt for an Outcast leader, I thought. But like the gang completely revolves around the leader. I have a really cool backstory, and the Book of the Outcast really kind of lends itself to like you really create this cool story with your leader, and the rest of the gang kind of follows suit within those lines. But if the leader dies, you actually just restart the entire gang. So it's really that's all about the leader.
So now we know how to mess with Josh. Just gun for the leader. Everybody goes for the leader.
Oh, you got an upgrade?
In the past, like Delok and Enforcers with me piloting them have always done quite well. So this one I'm like, I'm gonna try something that's absolutely terrible, and it's gonna be a lot of fun though.
I'm doing my Goliath.
They get access to some psychic powers out of the gates, which is fun. Like I've always appreciated that aspect of 40K universe, like bringing that to life. So I'm going to have a couple fun models, a couple just trash taking up space and activations.
It's going to be awesome.
But I get a lot of bodies because they are cheap and not good. So that'll be fun too.
Having a number of activations like that, though, is a tactic and all.
Absolutely.
If you roll well, they're amazing.
Anybody rolls well.
If you roll well and don't run out of ammo, which is what always happens with me in Necromunda. First shot out of ammo. Dang it. So anyways, I built up the entire gang and got the painting started on those. So they're primed, and I got the Zenithal highlights going, and we'll start applying the real paint. And actually tomorrow when we're doing our hobby hangout.
Oh, nice. Yeah. All right. I'm going to do Goliath for that again. They're sitting over there on my desk because I pulled them out, and I was like, all right, how do you make a list? 1,000 credits. Okay.
After the last go round, I did Chaos Cult. That's not their official name. What's the official name?
It's the
Harlots?
No.
I don't know. They're Chaos Cultists. I did a Chaos Cult.
Yeah.
But they don't have the same juice that like Goliaths and Orlocks and Escher and Vansar. And so I was like, nope, I'm going OGs. I'm going Orlock.
Classic
good. So I banged out an original Orlock starter set. I think yours actually, your old one
that I gave you.
Yeah, and so it's all painted, and then I need to add in the jump pack guys and the rigger, and there's some cool stuff. So
everybody's
super
been
excited.
clamoring for the Necromunda campaign. So
I was talking with Dan Boyd, him being Mr. Necromunda, and kind of bouncing ideas and just having a little chat about what kind of campaign we should run for a group that is so large, because we're going to have potentially upwards of 14 people.
Holy smokes.
We'll see.
We'll see.
But I wanted to run a campaign specifically that was very flexible. Not everybody has to get together for game days at the same time, because 14 adults spread out across 5 different cities is not realistic. That's never going to happen. So if we can get a couple big game days that most of people can show up, like that's awesome. That's all we're looking for. And then we will you're not fighting over territory specifically. Like
Right.
you're building up your base. So I'm going to run the Outlander campaign for those listening and curious. Outlander campaign, you actually like the first half of the campaign, you're building up your base. So you're adding structures to it, and structures will produce resources, which lets you do more things. And all the rewards for the missions are, you get credit so you can keep adding to your gang, but also you're getting more of these resources to help you just beef up your base. And then the second half of the campaign, you get to go out and actually like raid people's bases and try to get some of their resources and things like that. So it's very flexible, and it's good for a large group like what we have here. So very much looking forward to it.
All right. If only we had a kind of big central gathering spot, like a bigger game store. Like, oh wait. Hey,
yeah, you got Sky Herrick's.
That's right. Herrick's is expanding. Very excited.
Space,
That's right.
Yeah,
so it should be great for that.
Kind of what I was thinking for a kickoff.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
Each of the campaign halves was get something going over at Sky Shop.
I think that'd be awesome. Yeah, I was going to go on some tangent there, but I forgot it. So good. Let's keep going.
What have you been up to, Jody?
Yeah, Jody. All right, some stuff. I just realized I had to go back and check notes from last episode to go, what did I cover? Not
right. It does kind of roll into each other.
I did, in fact, finish my 4 Bane Blades and finished my army in time for Adepticon.
Awesome.
They look awesome.
Legions Imperialis Bane Blades.
Yeah. 4 regular Bane Blades. What? It was easy to fly with those.
Dude, I can build a Bane Blade in 20 minutes.
Get
it's Legions Imperial scale.
Easy.
I was cracking jokes earlier about the Sharpie because I did, for the first time in many years, used a Sharpie on parts of the Bane Blades because they had to match everything else. I didn't want the standard to drop at all.
Right.
But there was also like, no, I need to get these 4 things painted.
Yeah.
And it was looking at my calendar. My March was wonderfully, insanely busy. And I was looking, I was like, I have 1 day. Now it's a full day to paint, but I have 1 day.
Yeah.
And they got done, and they were at the right standard. So I got those 4 Bane Blades built, primed, painted, and cranked out.
Awesome.
And then
nobody knew they were Sharpie. Nobody knew.
I'm sure somebody did.
Unless you told them.
I sent some guys pictures just to troll. I think I made sure to get Brian a picture.
Oh yeah, that always really gets Brian excited. Colin too.
Yeah. I should have. Dang it! I didn't want to call him. Yeah. Sorry, Colin. Next time, buddy.
When I was, I needed a Helldrake painted, and Colin's like, "Oh man, I really don't want to do a Helldrake." I'm like, you know what? Just do the base coating, send it over. I'll just use Sharpie on all the trim. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll do it.
Got him. Similar to Josh, though, got back from Adepticon, and after cranking out Legions Imperialis and then playing Legions Imperialis for, the event there, which was great. More on that in a little bit. Was ready for changing up, but it also prior had some ideas cooking that while I was there, had some experiences that really locked in the direction I wanted to go. So total palette cleanser
with
was
Legions Imperialis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, like there's a lot of layers here. Like, so on Legions Imperialis, I was good and I was ready for just step away and do something entirely different hobby wise.
Right.
I know where I want to go with Legions Imperialis, but I also had another project I've kind of alluded to that I'm going to talk about in just a second. That is entirely a different direction.
Gotcha.
But the palette cleanser I came back to was Warlord Games skeletons. They look like Harryhausen stop motion Jason the Argonaut skeletons. They're super. The comedy of them, and I put in the notes here, no small feet, tee-hee-hee. The feet are separate on these skeletons. So when you see a picture, they're very spindly and like they feel fragile when you're like touching the actual plastic models. And when you glue them together, you have to glue the feet to these little spindly legs, and then you clip a bridge between the feet away later.
The foot bones connect to the what bones?
Yeah, the lower leg bones, and then the torso separate. They're separate on separate on separate on separate. But it was great to just had Vikings playing in the background and just one at a time glued them together. Nice. Got those all primed up and thrown together. Found I had a gap in my collection of I didn't have any generic skeletons, and I was like, how do I not have?
Interesting.
Yeah, it was weird.
That was the first set of models that I wanted when I was running D&D, and I'd gotten back from the army, and that was the first set I looked at for Games Workshop because it was just generic skeletons, and that's where the whole They want how much for plastic?
They're still actually really good skeletons.
Yeah, they're not bad.
Yeah, funny enough, those old 80s skeletons.
The old ones, yeah.
Yeah, they had nothing on them, and they were mostly okay scale. They had very peanut-sized heads, but otherwise were great. All right. So the project I was alluding to is I also had been curious about doing a skirmish game with some very, very specific design limitations of what I wanted that game to look like. And also found myself really inspired by Inquisitor 28, hashtag Inquisitor 28.
Yep.
Blanchitsu's style of modeling that's going on right now. Speaking of plastic models, I have had to fight like the purchase urge we've been talking about of wanting to buy. There's a blend of kits that's out there right now from Kill Team particularly.
Yep.
Of rogue traders, inquisitorial forces just was in the last, I think, big set.
Yep.
And then the Adeptus Mechanicus, like the core factions to Inquisitor in plastic right now are so good.
They're amazing.
They're incredible models.
And so easy to convert now because it's all plastic and multi-part and
plastic glue.
So I actively had to like talk myself through going, but I have an old collection of the old metal Inquisitors from around the 2000s. That
the 28 mil, not 54.
The 28, yeah. The
Inquisitor game Inquisitors,
right?
But like
Witch Hunter, the Witch Hunter Codex from way back.
Yeah.
I've had a pile of those, and there's some of the old 80s kind of oddball, original Inquisitors that are just very strange.
Yep.
From that 80s era. So I really forced myself to go, you know what? If I'm going to prototype a rule set, and that's what I want to do, I'm just going to use these old metals I have and let myself just get paint on them and then paint them really sloppy in a Blanchitsu style, limited color palette. Like I was laughing with Josh before we recorded. I have like 6 or 7 paints out total for this whole project. And I'm really only using like 4 or 5 on every model. So they really are just like maximum tightening down, because if you look at John Blanche's artwork, there's only like 3 or 4 colors, right? Even his full color pieces only have a handful of colors.
Like browns and reds.
Yeah.
And maybe some
yellow,
little black gold. And yellow.
Yeah.
They're all very earth tones for the most part.
There's actually, I went looking for it and I could not find it. There's a video somewhere of him coloring one of his own pieces, and he shows how he does it.
Oh, how
and it's, if I remember right, he has 4 bottles of ink.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And all of the color tones come out of just blending these 4.
Yeah.
I mean, he works in his own way. So yeah, I've finished 10 of these models. I have another 5 or 6 that are ready to go and primed. I'm trying to limit myself to about an hour a model of, again, that Blanchitsu style of there's a loose roughness to it that I'm trying to embrace. And then, like I said, I also, because we also did a little bit more travel, nothing like yours, just a week ago. And on those 4 or 5 hours of plane trips, I had a notebook with me and I roughed out what I wanted the rules to do, again, within this very narrow, self-imposed kind of mandate. So at some point, that might be something I will type up in a rough form and release to the community. It's inspired by anybody who played the old 2000s actual Inquisitor game. Mm-hmm. It was a very weird and unique thing that GW has never done anything else like it. It was out of character when they did it then.
Yeah.
It's not a good rule set.
No,
it's borderline.
I was talking to John French about it because there was a point where we wanted to cover it and play it, and I have 2 copies of the Inquisitor rulebook right there and the expansions, and I have a ton of stuff for it. It's, as you said, it's not a particularly good rule set,
right?
In my opinion. But neither is Battlefleet Gothic, right? Like I look at Battlefleet Gothic now and I'm like, this is dated, So Gothic, I would say, is dated, and as critical as I am of it, I'm like, it's a design philosophy of an era. Yes.
Inquisitor
is just,
I don't know if it's even good.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's just our take on it. And there are people that love it and that's cool.
Yeah.
But I don't care for it. But I brought it up to John French in one of our conversations we were having. He's like, he goes, why wouldn't you just use the Dark Heresy rules?
Right.
And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, why wouldn't you? I mean, there's basically a combat rule system.
You already have movement and combat.
Percentile system, and I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting point. Yeah.
In some ways, Dark Heresy, I didn't realize this. I have actually thought this when we've played, that I'm like, oh, this is what those rules were
successor of
supposed
it.
to
That's what it
be.
became.
Maybe.
Not
Right,
supposed to be, but there is clearly a lineage there.
What they were trying to achieve.
Right.
Yeah.
So my design question is, what if you swing the pendulum the entire opposite direction? Instead of swinging the pendulum out towards role playing, swing the pendulum back towards maximum simplified war game.
Yeah.
And there was an interesting core mechanic of you would declare your actions and then you would roll a handful of dice and you would resolve that
Just keep
series of
pushing it.
actions.
Yep.
Could you modernize that idea?
Interesting.
And I've come up with, when I say beta, that's not accurate. It is 2 pages of notes.
Alpha.
Yeah.
Pre-alpha.
Yeah. That, it's pre-alpha, but I mean, it's Blanchitsu looking scribbled
Well, hey,
notes.
if you ever want to give it a try, just let me know. I'll happily.
Heck yeah. Well, that's why I'm painting up all these models is to go like, hey, let's cram down a table and ideally, see if the animal works. So if nothing else, it's been a super fun palette cleansing project and to live in these old models. In purchases, I
want to play this.
What?
Your purchases.
Okay. I'll jump into that one.
I almost bought this.
I was going to skip this. So yeah, I have an Adepticon. It wasn't a rule until this year for myself. Last year,
Jody, you live in rules.
Convenient.
I like frameworks. Like my brain likes to simplify things.
Don's the same way.
Yeah. So if I can simplify down to this is the agreement I've made with myself, I can change it whenever it's with myself. But this is the rule I like for me is when I go to Adepticon, I am going to buy something. Right. Like
Heck, I like that rule.
Yeah. But it's counter because I have like right now I'm being really careful about when I make a purchase X, Y, and Z. Like I talked myself out of buying all those amazing plastic kits because I knew I had these metals, blah, blah, blah. But when I go to Adepticon and I walk the vendor hall, not only am I going to buy something, because obviously I'm going to buy something, but I'm going to buy a game. I'm going to buy a game when I'm there.
Okay.
Full stop.
I think that's an interesting rule in a number of ways. One, for yourself and like personal, I'm going to have a new game that I come away from this with an experience on. 2, those guys have come there to sell. Like, and
it's a buying con for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, I feel in a way that's very interesting because it's like anytime I go to a game store, if I'm going to play there, I'm going to purchase something. Like every time I've gone to Skies and I play something, I'm like, let me look around and I'm sure at the minimum, go buy a few paints or something.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Sky thankfully has all the great paints. So more on that in a minute.
Every Games Workshop kit in existence.
That does make it easier.
Insane.
So yeah, I picked up the game this year. So actually I'm going to jump back. Last year, funny enough, we both bought Shovel Knights.
Yes.
Like we played with our spouses and then both of them enjoyed it. We're like, let's play this. So we picked up Shovel Knights because it was a lot of fun. And I also picked up, I always get it wrong, Steel Rift. It's Guerrilla Miniature Games, Ash. It's his mech combat game.
Okay. Yes. I know which one you're talking about.
Which, funny enough, this year there was an expansion released for the game that he didn't write. He handed it off. And that was a cool thing.
See it evolve.
Yeah. And if you're not watching Guerrilla Miniature Gaming, for those who enjoy YouTube stuff like this show, if you aren't watching, he's gone through a massive revision of what he does in the last 8 months, I'd say.
Interesting.
And he's doing some really interesting new content where he's talking with industry people about not about their game, but about the game industry and the game process of what does it mean to own a game store and how do you fight burnout as a games developer and just some really interesting, thoughtful stuff that there aren't a lot of those conversations happening in that way.
That content you're talking about right there reminds me of we did an episode on, you want to write for Black Library.
Oh yeah.
And again, I thought, this is going to be great. Like it's insider view is like one of our lowest listened to episodes. Cause it turns out not everybody wants to design games or write a book or,
So if you like that, I love that stuff.
You do.
I really enjoy that, industry insider stuff. So if you want some of that in a different way or just somebody thinking about the hobby and the game community and the game industry in a little bit different way, can't recommend enough. So that was my last year purchase, was his game.
Nice.
And some MDF terrain, funny enough, that I thought was really cool from Death Ray Designs. This year though was Monster Fight Club has released a handful of games, and Cyberpunk Combat Zone was the box set I went with this year.
that was a Kickstarter originally.
Yeah. And it was funny enough, they were supposed to have it there and for sale, and they got locked up in customs nonsense. And they said, so what we're doing is we can't sell the game here, but it's literally coming out of customs like today. So we'll get them shipped on the cart and shipped out to you at no cost next week. And I was like,
that's a sale.
For me, that was like, that is the right answer.
I don't have room in a suitcase.
I can't bring this home.
And I think it's a pretty thick box, if I recall.
It is in line with most GW kind of boxes. So it is packed to the gills with stuff. It's a small scale skirmish game. Actually, I bought it without playing a demo of it, which I almost never do. But my friend
Were they running demos there?
They were. Okay. And funny enough, one of the guys who was running demos that I did end up just chit-chatting with, he and I were in Sacramento at the exact same time. And we're like, I'm pretty sure I played you at a tournament a few times. And like, did the I think I know you. And then found out it was like, oh no, we definitely were in Great Escape at the same era.
How cool.
So my friend Tom Mason, who is a sculptor that I've had a relationship with for years and is one of the people I look forward to hanging out with when I get to go to Adepticon, because he lives back east or Midwest. His group has been in love with it and they've been playing it, and he kind of walked me through and talked me through the rules of it. Also, because so much role playing with me and other games are happening, I don't have, other than Necromunda, don't have like cyberpunk style models at all. Right. And so I was like, I can justify it. And I was curious about those rules along with some others. So yeah, very excited. It showed up last night.
Nice.
Like the box showed up and
nice.
I read like the first 2 pages of rules before I had to tap out and call it a night. But I'm excited to see it.
That's a 2-player starter, right? So
yeah.
You can,
Yep.
We
perfect.
A lot of us played a lot of Cyberpunk RPGs, Cyberpunk and Cyberpunk 2020, and now it's Cyberpunk Red is the rule set, which all of Cyberpunk 2077, the video game, was kind of based on.
Right.
So is
right in line.
Yeah, it's all Arasaka's probably the villain group. Yeah.
Yep. The models are
super in line.
Gorgeous
with all that stuff. I'll bet they are.
And
I've seen the pictures.
They are a plasta resin. And funny enough, the guy was talking, he goes, they're a plasta resin. He goes, and because you've been around for a minute, not fine cast. It's like, well, I'd assume not. Otherwise you wouldn't have said
nobody's doing fine cast ever again.
Yeah. Well, and getting to look at the models last night, I'm like, it is. It's if you fixed fine cast.
Yeah. That's what it would look like.
This is what it was. And it's just more resin and less plastic.
Right. Interesting.
So that was my one. No, when I go to Adepticon, I have full license. I'm going to buy a game,
right?
Like, and if I pick up a handful of models, I wanted the Victoria miniatures. I've backlogged 3 or 4 years of them now. The Victoria miniatures, special, con exclusive.
Yeah.
Another human who I just want to support because what she's provided to the community for years has been amazing. So. Yeah. And then Monster Flight Club as a company really like all the drop terrain that they've been offering for years, how they got started. Funny enough, I was thinking back to the first Adepticon I went to, they had a tiny little corner booth that was just here's rocks. And then look at our trees.
I remember. Yeah.
Our trees, you can take the tops off the trees and then hide a guy inside and put the top back on the plastic tree. And it was this tiny little thing. And now they're got licenses.
One of the larger booths.
Doing awesome stuff.
Yeah.
So we got back and I started that Inquisitor 28 project, and this is the last purchase, but also painting. For the bases for the Blanchitsu thing, I had that was the most clear, this is what I want the bases to look like. And I wanted them dark because I wanted to offset the dark griminess of the paint job. So the bases really had to be dark. And I'd heard about Dirty Down is a company brand of paints, Dirty Down Rust, and then Dirty Down Verdigris. Anyway, I went up to Skies and picked up those 2 pots of paint, and man, in literally 3 steps, was blown away with the results.
Yeah.
So I primed some of the Sector Imperialis and then the, whatever the Necromunda. There's 2 different urban base plastic bases. So I took some of each. I hit them with a spray paint can of silver. So, use caution because spray paint silver can get away from you quick. Let that dry, and then just wet, took big gobs of Games Workshop's technical paint, Typhus Corrosion, which is just a dark brown, muddy brown with grit in it, slathered that down, and then put a big blob of Dirty Down Rust next to it, and just let them dry, and came back and was blown away with how good they look. I mean, they look...
You showed us the actual bases, and they're impressive.
For
the rust is incredible.
For
literally
dab,
gob of paint, jab, gob of paint, jab. Now it is wet to wet, so you're letting, and if you read the Dirty Down instructions, they specifically talk about using the edges, water to feather them out. If you just paint them on as a brushstroke, you probably won't be happy with the results.
Right.
But if you are willing to put some, like, clean up the edges a little bit, holy cow, it's rust. I mean, it makes rust somehow.
That's really cool.
It's amazing. And the verdigris was really fun too. It's very different than if you use the GW Nylon oxide.
Yeah.
It's a different look. The two of them look great together. Anyway, that is what I've been hobbying on.
That's your hobby tip.
That's my hobby time.
Also, we got to mention, congratulations, Dan Boyd. He's going to be a father yet again.
Heck yeah.
Second time around.
Which, congratulations.
Absolutely.
Really, really happy for you guys. So that's good news.
Yeah, it was good to see him. More on that later.
Really good catch up.
All right. So games played. I haven't played any Games Workshop games. I've been traveling last 3 weeks, so haven't done any of that. I did go by the Games Workshop store in Sydney, which was pretty impressive. It's kind of one of their showcase stores. They sell some Forge World stuff there. I posted a picture of, they had done like a model in every color of the contrast paints that they have, so you can see like exactly what they do. It's kind of a useful tool there.
Good visual aid. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. But I talked to the manager there for a while. He was really nice. We left and Shell's like, how come you didn't tell him you run a podcast? I go, I didn't need to. She goes, well, you're not marketing it very well. Well, you got kind of a point there, but I said, whatever, I just wanted to see what was going on.
You didn't take your t-shirt with you?
No.
Wow.
I brought 2 t-shirts for Craig though, cause he put me up.
Nice. Oh yeah.
There you go.
And it's expensive to ship down to Australia. But I did play, I met up with Jordan Raskopoulos, who used to be the singer of Axis is Awesome.
Yeah.
We met at this amazing game event place that has like a tavern attached to it. It's called the Fortress in Sydney. And it has like this whole area that's like a tavern. Like it very much felt like a Bugman's bar kind of tavern. But even like more so. And what's cool is they have like this art on the wall that are like, fantasy paintings and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out those are like pictures of all the characters and things they fought of the owners, like D&D.
Oh, cool.
Whoa.
There's
That's
2 of
really
these.
cool.
Like this place, like I would love to open a place like this. And it's funny because a lot of gamers talk about, I want to run a game store. I'm like, well, I hope you like retail because that's really all running game stores. This would be running a restaurant and a service, but I mean, I kind of like that kind of thing, but like there was just that. Then there was like this gaming venue where they held tournaments. And when we arrived, they were doing like a Smash Brothers tournament there.
Uh-huh.
Massive screen. You can see the picture. There's like this massive screen. There's, then there's smaller screens where like each of the 2 competitors are playing. There's like a seating area and tables and everything there where people are watching the event. Then there's this booth up in this upper level where they control the streaming of the event because they're streaming it online.
Oh, wow.
Then there's a internet cafe part of the thing that's all Alienware gaming machines. There's probably 50 of them. You went in there. There's
It's a big place.
It was massive. I am telling you, it was massive.
Holy cow.
You could play board games and stuff in the tavern part of it, and role playing games. There were people playing D&D when we were there. We played Slay the Spire, the board game, which is based on a video game. So kind of like Shovel Knight in a way. Like Shell had made that reference. It's a cool little game, but it had just come out in Kickstarter, and Jordan had just gotten it like literally 2 days before. And so she's a big fan of the video game. So it wasn't hard to like get like, oh, this is how the board game plays. And it was super fun. Like I was, what's the site that sells the Kickstarters? I can never remember the name of it.
GameFound afterwards. Yeah.
GameFound.
They do a lot of them.
Yeah. I went to look there. I'm like, oh no, that's sold out.
Yeah.
Like I should have backed this one. This
This
game's super fun. Shell loved it. So anyway, so we were playing the stupid video game on our iPad all the way home.
There it is.
But yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It was great to catch up with Jordan. She's doing well. We have a few fans down in Australia that listen to the show and stuff. And Jeremy and Craig, we met through the show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's incredible the reach it has and the friendships you can develop. Like Shell became really good friends with Kelly, Craig's wife, and Craig, and just felt like really sad that we were leaving. And I'm like, well, maybe we should move here. And she's like, I can't move all the way here. I don't really want to move all the way to Australia. I don't want to leave all my
spiders the side of your face, Carl.
Can't deal with that.
It's really just, wow. It's right for the.
Yeah. Well, that's a big fact.
I got to keep my people here.
That's right. So yeah, anyway, it's just incredible. This has allowed us the opportunity to connect with people around the globe. And, you know, whenever I travel, I always try to meet up with individuals. So, met up with a couple people, and we'll talk about that in our Patreon episode, but, it was fun. It was a good time. But anyway, that board game was super
Nice.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, I'm kind of feeling like we should take a break. We're at an hour. Let's take a break. We'll come back, then we'll talk games played. Because I think that kind of dovetails right into the Adepticon discussion.
Yeah,
Sure. I think so.
And so we'll just wrap all that into one. All right. We'll be right back. We're going to do something different this go around. We're going to wrap kind of your guys' games played, which are, I think, primarily looking at this Adepticon focused.
Yep, largely.
Into the Adepticon conversation. We'll just kind of do it as one whole segment here, and then kind of close out the show after that. But I am, because I have a lot of questions about Adepticon having not gone this year, which again for me was like such a difficult decision. Did I make the right decision? Jury still. And I did. I mean, like
Nope.
It was good.
Next year, tell you what, we'll trade, but you have to. Never mind.
No. Oh, I didn't mention I'm going to Nova too.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, just bought the tickets to fly to Nova.
Nice.
I'm going there and support a Table War Charities. So I'll be manning the Table War Charities table and stuff with Todd. And then Todd's going to go off and play some 40K, and then he'll come back and we'll swap it out.
Yeah.
But I'll be there. Shell will be there.
You're also going somewhere else in July.
Yeah, with you.
Get you some games to maybe make up for a little bit of that loss of Adepticon.
I don't think it's going to, but
Yeah. It'll be
cool. We're going up to
we're going up to Tacoma Open
for the US Open. Yeah, for the Games Workshop US Open.
I was so bummed when I realized those two dates. I mean, my dad's turning 80 and it's my parents' 60th wedding anniversary. Can't skip that one.
Yeah.
No.
And a family reunion.
That's an obligation.
Yeah, I'm playing in the narrative.
Yeah.
I'm playing in the narrative there, so I'm pretty excited about it. And I had joined the wait list, and they just opened it up, and I was able to snatch
Opened up those slots yesterday, so that was good timing.
Lucked out.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Because at first I thought, I'm not going, but yeah, now I'm going. Shell doesn't know I'm going. I brought it up kind of sort of to her yesterday. I was like, so there's this thing I'm thinking about going to, not telling her I already bought the ticket. And then I'm like,
Still fully refundable.
and I'm like, yeah, because I know it is. And I'm like, when is our kid coming down? Because they're in Seattle. When are they coming down? Oh, they're coming down late July, early August. I go, oh. So I'm thinking, well, they'll still be up there. I go, well, if you want to go up there and you'll already wait a week and they come home, and she kind of like, oh yeah, let me think about it. I'm like, okay.
I'm going.
I had to snatch the ticket because otherwise if I don't go, it's still refundable, but yeah. So, she's just going to be like, go, but it's just funny to play stupid games like that. Okay. So yeah, we're going to that too, but I am going to be at Nova Open. I got to reach out to Jeff. I doubt he listens to the show anymore. And hopefully Jeff can come down and visit too, but I think I'm going to bring my Black Legion there and see if I can get some open games with some guys.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And I'll play some, skirmish demos and stuff. I love doing that stuff.
As you have to.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're at Adepticon. Let's start with, before you even start games played, you guys fly out there separate, right?
Separate, same day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I went down to LA, so it's funny.
Gotcha.
This is my I'll just do the picture for my week, because earlier in the week I was in LA shooting photo shoot, video shoot with professional female Olympic beach volleyball athletes. So that's the first half of my week, and then the second half of my week is Adepticon.
What a rough job you got there.
Two wildly different worlds, but it was
volleyball. You say? I don't know if you know this, but I used to play volleyball.
I'm gonna find that picture that I photoshopped, and it's gonna make the video. I gotta find that.
Ooh, buddy.
Yeah.
Who are the?
Sarah Hughes is the actual Olympic athlete.
Okay.
And then it was
I know the name, actually.
Several of her friends were coming to help out with the shoot, and then it was with her.
I kind of stopped following volleyball when like St. John Smith and like Randy Stoklos were the players. Those were the guys they couldn't beat.
Yep.
What a cool name, St. John Smith.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's a pretty badass
Southern California name there ever was.
All right. Anyway.
So I had to push. I unfortunately had to drop out of the Adeptus Titanicus singles game on Thursday because my flight wasn't supposed to land until noon, and obviously that event was going to start at like 9 or something that morning. Yeah. So there's no way I was going to make it for that. So the photo shoot did end up making me drop out for the day, but whatever, getting paid and had a great time down there. Catching up with some friends in Southern California. And then ended up having a bunch of plane delays. They had to replace the
that's weird.
The motherboard on the plane like twice, which is
oh my god, that instills
as frustrating as it is. I always think in those moments, I'm like, but I'm glad you caught it.
Yeah.
But I wish you'd just tell me, you know what, we're out of Pepsi. Yeah, we got to hold off and fill more Pepsi.
Yes. And this was the 30-minute delay. Okay, it's going to be longer. The first one didn't do the fix. So
are you sitting on the plane?
We're on the plane.
Yeah,
they deplaned, they deplaned like 60% of the plane and then got it fixed. So then they have to like wrangle everybody who's already off the plane and like going to the bathroom and going to get food and stuff like that back onto the plane.
Oh boy.
And then on the flight, it was actually the girl sitting next to me. She was traveling with her mom who was sitting behind. She ended up like getting up mid-flight and then having like she passed out and hit her head.
Oh my gosh!
So they ended up having like this medical emergency in the middle of the flight, and there was really the call on the intercom like, "Do we have licensed medical professionals on this flight?" And like,
is there a doctor on the plane?
Is there a doctor on the plane?
No, but I could take pictures of volleyball players.
I got that. I didn't have my camera with me. I sent it back with the art creative director.
Wow, was she okay?
Yeah, she ended up being okay. But there was definitely a moment where like, do we need to do an emergency landing now? And like this, anyways, it was an adventure just getting there, but wow, everything worked out well.
I always find that honestly, like kind of scary.
Yeah.
I mean, and I was a military police officer. I would go to accidents where there were
further away from a hospital than when you're a mile high.
But I mean, just that when people have like a medical thing around me, it's like, to me, I could never be a doctor or like a EMT. Right. It's just, it scares me. I feel for the people very badly. So.
Yeah, it ended up, she like clearly had a cold or something like that, and then
that's
she
all
was
it can
like
take.
Just on her way to the bathroom and pressure and whatever happened, just ended up just collapsing, and that head hit was thankfully minor, so it did not necessitate like a medical landing or anything like that. But yeah, it was an adventure.
Getting there was an adventure.
Probably more embarrassed than anything, Yeah,
right. She ended up just like chilling with her mom by the emergency exit, like the door over there, just kind of, I think she was just laying on the floor the rest of the flight, really. Just in case. I mean, oh man, the news, there's been so many people doing stupid stuff with exits. Like, you can't, I don't want to fly with anybody anymore. They're unpredictable.
I'll tell you about my trip later. But anyway, okay. So you got there
eventually.
Me and Jody were supposed to land 15 minutes apart from each other and just grab a ride because of the delay.
Thankfully, you got the heads up about your delays while you were on the tarmac. So I got off the plane because I'd been in the air. Got the message, and then was like, "Hey, buddy, I'm not waiting 2 hours at the airport. I got to get. Well, let's link up at the event because our plan was, as is, I think should be tradition. You get off the plane and you don't go straight to the event. You go to Portillo's and you get your Chicago dog.
Gotta get your Italian beef.
Your Italian beef, and you get that going in you. And then, if
just
you're taking the 6 a.m. flight, you're good and hungry by that point.
Yeah. And that's your one meal for the day.
Yeah. And then you're done because you've had all the meats. So that didn't quite sync up. But while you were finishing your flight, I got to the event and wandered in, and I hadn't eaten kind of low blood sugar days to the fury and splendor that is Adepticon, and then almost walked into Campos, who was at the BattleTech pods.
What? No way.
Yeah. And then they were,
that's weird.
They had a three.
That's Shell's new thing, by the way. So I'm picking up on it.
What? That's weird.
Something obvious, like always happens. It's like, oh, that's weird.
So it was Aaron, Cheyenne and Campos were about to get in on the BattleTech interactive pods, the old school.
By the way, when I saw that those were going to be there, that was my first damn it.
First level of FOMO.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I've always wanted to do those.
Oh, it's so fun.
They're it's like, you haven't ever done one. Well, that's kind of a jerk thing, but you said it. So yeah. So walked in and they were like, oh, but we need a fourth. Do you want to go? Okay.
Yes.
They're like, we'll wait for these guys to go ahead of us. And so the four literally walked in and jumped in with them, threw my bags down, got the briefing of how to pilot the thing poorly. And I piloted poorly. Some other people did better and killed me a lot. But yeah, it was super rad.
Does it feel like you're in?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
So it's the
like
old
a simulator.
The only thing I wish is it had some like haptic feedback. They're obviously older now. So like when you take a hit, it doesn't shake or anything like that.
Yeah.
But
the screen does a little, but yeah, it's not.
It's pretty.
The capsule itself does.
But it's the old BattleTech MechWarrior game from the early 2000s is the game that it's running. But it, in a weird way, that janky
still works.
tech makes it even more. Yeah. So yeah, your throttle is
so jealous.
Physical throttle
is a physical like jet throttle, and you've got your cock pilot controls for your weapons, and they have the controls turned down to maximum simplified.
Yeah, sure.
But there is a way, if you're experienced, you can
ramp them up.
You can do a combo at the beginning.
Like when
to
you're
turn
doing
things
like
back
a driving simulator, do you want to do shifting or do you want to just do automatic?
Yeah.
Well, there's foot pedals and then there's also joystick. So the joystick, like you can turn your torso, but still be walking forward using the pedals, but they did not have that by default.
Yeah, I think that's probably
so
a good call.
You weren't doing the torso twisting, which is classic.
And when you get done, you get a printout of how you did, and there's a little fictional write up about how terrible you are.
God,
in my case,
I hope they're there the next year.
It was great. It was great, and they were cycling through fast. Yeah. Like I was shocked.
How long did you play? How many pods were there?
4
pods.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
I think it was 7-minute sessions. So it's a good little match.
It's a good.
Yeah. And it was only like 15, 30 minutes before you jumped in.
Wow.
And everybody was really cool that the 2 times I did it, everybody was really cool about like, oh, are you a group of 4? Okay, well, you guys wait or you guys go because I'm waiting for 2 more people.
Right,
and
right.
people were being pretty chill about that. And yeah, and one of the guys in front of us was like, oh, well, you guys go ahead. I've played like 3 times already. So,
oh my God.
And I'm just solo, but you 4 want to go. So you go.
So
and
Campos is like the BattleTech guy.
Yeah.
How did he come out of that?
Man
he was very excited and he played a lot of BattleTech. Yeah. I actually, one of my
last year, we could not get him away from the BattleTech tables.
No, nor this year.
Not this year either.
He rocked it.
That's what he's there for.
Yeah. It was awesome.
Good for him.
He demoed me on Friday.
The new BattleTech
Alpha. I'd really wanted to play BattleTech Alpha Strike and was curious about
it's
it.
A little simplified. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I have a box.
And he, they needed one. They had a little boot camps running every hour on the hour. And I signed up for one of those, and then they needed one extra, and I saw him walking by. I was like, hey, come teach me how to play. And so he ended up being we just got to have a one-on-one, and then he and I got to go grab lunch, which was a cool moment just because
nice.
He's a good dude.
Yeah, super good dude. And just hadn't had a lot of time to really sit down one-on-one. It was always in gaming sessions. So that was, anyway, but yeah, day one, it was, while I waited for him to get squared away.
You're doing BattleTech piloting.
Got blowed up
You're a
many times. I got in many lifetimes in many iterations of me.
Ended,
died a lot.
Respawned, ended again.
Yeah. Next time I'm taking
I got there and then we did in fact go to Portillo's and got our Italian beef and
nice.
You doubled down with the dog too.
Oh, that's I'm actually more excited about the dog. That's the Chicago dog.
Hot dogs are like one of the few things I don't.
Oh, that's right. You have that affliction.
I don't like.
Every now and then I like a hot dog.
And then we went to got our room squared away.
So now, were you at the main hotel?
We were not.
You were not.
We were a satellite hotel, which did have a block for Adepticon rooms and a sometimes shuttle. But it wasn't that far away. It was, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of a mile, something like that.
Did you feel removed from the event by being in the satellite hotel?
For me, in a good way.
Because you can compare.
Yeah.
Okay.
The not having access to like just throw your bag down real quick was kind of the bummer, but because we had so many friends there that were staying in the hotel,
that's what I'm going to say.
Like you could take advantage of that. But it was really nice to get away, and there was maybe like 10 other people at Adepticon staying there too, to just have some separation from the chaos and the noise. And
Let you breathe.
Yeah.
'Cause it was really pleasantly quiet at night.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So once you were like, and I'm ready to go call it a night, and not to say that like the hotel is noisy, like when you're in your room.
Actually, it's not. But occasionally people walking by.
And the energy though is still there, as weird as that sounds. Whereas
you're
like
right.
you feel that like, oh, you jump in your lift, or I mean, that is an additional cost. You got to lift an Uber back and forth. You don't have
that much
to, but
it's like $7 each way.
That's
not too bad.
No, it was not Bay Area pricing on it, thankfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it was actually nice to have that like unplug. I appreciated that more than I thought I would, actually.
Cool. Interesting. Okay.
And then the loosey-goosey shuttle was, sometimes you walked out and there was a shuttle there and they're like, oh, we'll just take you over. And sometimes there wasn't and you call it.
I think that's it's an interesting point because a lot of people like abandon ship when they don't get a room at the main hotel. Like it's good to know.
Yeah, honestly,
like, that's not a deal breaker.
Next year, it might even be the go-to.
Really?
The price was incredible in comparison. Like half
main
the
hotel
price
is
of the
expensive.
main hotel,
Yeah.
and not really an inconvenience, and some perks that came with that. So,
All right,
we walked away talking about like, I don't know, like it would actually consider.
I could easily go either way, I think.
so I think the go-to is try to get a main hotel. If that fails, all right.
Yep.
Not be disappointed so much. For me, that's the takeaway.
Depending on the finance situation, it's like,
Or maybe just go right to
save a bunch of money and go straight for plan B.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm trying to remember Thursday night. I don't remember
Thursday night, I ended up connecting with Cheyenne and Campos and Aaron and played two rounds of the BattleTech pods also.
Nice.
Got some action there. And then played my first game of the con with Avery. Austin, AJ's adult son, Avery.
Yep.
So we played a game of Legions Imperialis because he was not able to get into the main event. Enough people ended up dropping out because they weren't able to get there.
AJ was there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. It was super great to catch up with him.
You know what? Heck with him.
Yeah.
I 2 years in a row, AJ and I have had the same thing. We see each other. We're so glad to see each other. Give each other a big hug. How are you? How's life? Good. Okay. AJ, what's going on?
Last time
I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Was that this time?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw him at the end of I saw him at the end of the Legions Imperialis tournament, and it was like, well, I'm out of here.
There was a big snowstorm kicking in, so they
wanted to get,
and they were driving because they're driving back to Minnesota. So
who else was with them?
Avery.
Avery, I think it was just him and Avery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No Ian.
No Ian. No Eric.
Couldn't ride a horse down. I knew Eric wouldn't be there.
Yeah. With everything going on with him still. Poor guy. Yeah. So anyways, got my first game of Legions Imperialis in with Avery, which was super good to catch up with him and get a game. And he was playing White Scars. He has a great looking White Scars army, and he had 3D printed a bunch of stuff that is not yet available, which really makes White Scars like jet bikes and speeders and
But you can't even buy
things
right
like that. The model kits have obviously all been previewed, but they won't be released for probably a couple months at this rate. So it was really fun, to play White Scars, which I had not faced against yet because Austin, with his work schedule, we have not had time to throw down in the game yet. But especially when you add in all the new elements with the speeders and White Scars outflank a bunch of stuff, and then the jet bikes, like his list was so different from anything that I had played against yet, having largely played with Jody and Ivan,
right?
And just having a very different approach to that. And that was part of my excitement for Legions Imperialis at Adepticon, was to see how everybody else was approaching the game.
Right.
And just the sheer variety of lists and things like that we were going to see was, I was very curious going into that.
Yeah. I mean, when you play in kind of a constrained group.
Yeah.
Right. And this is what I discovered with 40K. Like we were just playing amongst ourselves in Santa Clara and San Jose. And then, and then the move to, hey, there's these guys in Oakland. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait, we've been doing this wrong. Or, it's always helpful.
Yeah.
To expand your group like that.
Absolutely.
Also, the 3D printing was not in a problematic way at all, but was a common theme. Like most, because there's just so little available, especially in the build up. If you consider not right now what's available for Legions Imperialis, but 2-3 months ago what was available for Legions Imperialis.
It's impossible to get stuff.
Yeah, like even things that had been released were not available. I definitely felt that.
Yeah, and I'm not a super supporter of like 3D printing, that kind of stuff, but at the same time I understand when the stuff is just not available. Like I'm willing to buy it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, you've provided the game. It's a
And now there's an event, and you know, my hope is that come next year, and I don't know that there's a way to tell or monitor it, that next year it is more of the plastic kits because they're available.
Different a little bit.
Well, a year
minimal.
later, hopefully
That's true. They're all based
stuff
off the
out there.
Horse Heresy stuff. So.
Yeah. I mean, the 3D printing, just for 3D printing of 3D printing's sake, like the things that people were bringing were beautiful. Like, it's cool
no
stuff.
doubt.
It was just an interesting like back and forth of like, it's very prevalent and that doesn't surprise me. But at the same time,
There's no other option.
for those of us who didn't do that, it also means you were playing with one arm tied behind your back, and
It's like
it was interesting.
White Scars get an improvement of their Jinx save. Everything that were 3D printing has a Jinx save and is improved of that. So
Right.
White Scars without those things isn't as thematic and also doesn't use that rule. So
Right.
Like,
I get it.
It was both.
it
was
made
both.
it made a lot of sense, and
I'm torn on
other
it.
armies also.
Yeah.
I'm actually very curious because obviously for Tacoma, the Tacoma Open, I'm going for Legions Imperialis and the Combat Patrol tournament that they're having up there, and that is a GW run event, so 3D printing is a
gonna
hard
be
no.
off the
Like,
table,
it is
yeah.
not an option there. So I'll be very curious to see again what kind of just forces people are building out there and what they're using and what models have been released between now and then, and etc. They did drop it. They originally had that as a 3,000 point game tournament, and they did have dropped it to 2,000 points. Again, I think for just feasibility of people painting forces and getting hands-on models.
Makes
and things
sense.
like that.
And time to play.
And time to play. Yeah.
All right. So
that evening,
Legion Imperials. Yeah. Okay.
that evening when he was playing with Avery, this was one of the highlights of the whole convention. I've had a relationship online, just chit-chatting and kind of like you and John French, just talk and keep in touch, and have developed a friendship over the years. James Hewitt and I have had
I knew he was going to be there.
Yeah, he was there with Modifius demoing their products, but also their new game that is his new game, Fallout Factions.
Yeah. I didn't realize he was involved in that because I was looking at that game a while
It
back.
is very much his baby.
It is. His studio, Needy Cat Games, has largely it still exists and it's still doing its thing, but he and his partner are the leading force of the in-house tabletop gaming part of Modifius now.
Interesting.
So I got to sit and have drinks with him for about 3 hours of and it was just catching up and talking about gaming, and I don't know that we talked about Blitz Bowl ever, which is kind of funny because that's largely where I actually met him. But then it was funny later, Adon and some guys were sitting in the bar area and they were having drinks and saw me and hadn't seen them yet. And so Adon came over and gave me a hard time and I said, "Oh, this is James, blah, blah, blah." And later Adon was kind of freaking out. He was like, "Wait, that was James Hewitt?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, and I wasn't going to do the like, "Oh, this is," like,
I don't know. It was
pretty funny.
I don't get starstruck by any folks like that anymore. You know,
apparently those are games. The games he has specifically designed are games that Adon feels very strongly about. So, I mean, and he's Adon. He gets excited about things.
He does.
The joys of being around the guy. So yeah, that evening was largely my first night
game
there.
in particular is Adon attached to that?
I don't know. Does it matter?
I just know
excited.
it's not Necromunda.
No, I didn't
talked a lot about that.
Yeah, we had a whole conversation another night about that. I didn't even know James had been involved in the rewriting of, and had some interesting thoughts. We actually talked about that. And anyway, but that was it's always one of the coolest things of Adepticon is getting to connect with.
Yeah, for sure.
I was talking about AJ a little bit ago and getting to see Avery and catch up with him.
And that right there is the piece that was the most missed by me.
Sure.
Because I get to see Matt Weeks. I get to see Hank. I get to see, Damon. I get to see,
Todd and Doug.
All of us. Yeah. Todd and Doug,
Well, I know you see him all the time.
Like Todd and Doug and Amory and Dave Taylor, ended up talking to Dave Taylor a bunch of times throughout the con.
That's
right.
Kept running into each other. Yeah, super nice guy. And just everybody else. And my circle has only continued to expand.
Correct.
Especially the last couple of years.
And that's why Adepticon feels like home for me.
It's definitely a family reunion for sure.
Yeah.
And we had such a big crew this time, which
it's a good comparison.
Not only the local, but just the extended crew. Of everybody
So
up there. Yeah.
Didn't mean to derail that. So
No, but
you're
that
hanging
was-
out with Hewitt.
And then finish that because James was maximum jet lagged because Yep. And it was his first time in the United States too, which was pretty exciting. So, and then bounced over and caught the end of your game with Avery and wrapped up.
That was our game. And then I think we did a early preliminary perusing of Golden Demon stuff.
That's right.
Which Thursday, not a lot of stuff was
there.
out there yet. But it was cool to see before everybody was surrounding the cases.
And then moved on to
really cool stuff in there.
To Friday.
Yeah.
All right. Friday. What happens Friday?
Oh boy.
Event.
So Friday, I wake up at like 6 a.m. because I'm participating in the Longmore Doubles event, which is 40K doubles with Cheyenne. This is run by
4 a.m. our time.
Yeah. So this is early. I am still very much on California time.
Yeah.
This event was not the best organization wise. Not the most clear on their communication organization. There was actually 3 different times listed for the start time. So we all got up early to just in case it was the early time. So I ended up waking up at 6 a.m., like getting over to the other hotel by 6:30 or something like that.
And they didn't update it through the app. Like here's the appropriate time.
There was an email that said one time. There was a link in the email which said another time because they've just reused the paperwork from LVO because they run the same event at LVO. And then the app had a third time. The app did end up being the correct time.
Okay. But who knows?
Who knows when you have 3 different times.
That's
listed.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. So I get over to the other hotel. I have breakfast with Cheyenne. And we just make our game plan. Like, we're just going to go win. No.
Good plan.
Yeah.
Practice
Roll
your fist bumps.
sixes.
So the event doesn't end up starting till 10. So I'm like 4 hours later, ready to roll dice. Our first pairing, it was Cheyenne and I, so we were doing team fist bump. So I was playing Necrons, he was playing Blood Angels. We had our custom t-shirts on for those of you watching the video.
There you go.
On the screen here. Yep. So it was a lot of fun. We played against 2 guys. I am blanking on their name, and probably honestly I just couldn't hear it because it was so freaking loud in there.
Really?
There were our table, there were no chairs. So no, all games, no, there was maybe like 1 chair per table, and just the table we happened to get 0 chairs. So that was rough. So loud you can't hear your opponents across the
main hall.
This is the main hall. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's the far right side. The left being vendor hall, right being all the 40K down there. No chairs. Can't remember the guys' names. Maybe didn't hear it the first time. But anyway, it was a fun game. This was very much set up in a match play tournament format. So terrain was very abstract in that you have like the mats, little squares of mats, rectangles of mats representing terrain more than terrain itself, which for me is just
that doesn't work.
Not like it. It's making it too much of this competitive match thing. It's like when the models themselves are abstracted and removing the kind of your just integration with the narrative and how the game's happening. And it's not how I like to approach the game. It's not how I play the game.
Okay.
Like obviously everything is line of sight blocking for these blocks. So there's just basically these huge line of sight blocking pillars everywhere. And just, I don't play the game that way. So that for me, I didn't deploy with that in mind. It's like, okay, cool. Like, my, heavy destroyers did really well taking out 1 land raider, but it's like their other main target was going to be this repulsor executioner, which is on the other side of the board, which there's no way they're ever going to get line of sight to at this game because of the terrain layout. And it's like, oh, okay. Like I would have deployed differently, but whatever. Like, that's fine. It was a fun game. Incredibly hard to hear what was going on. I will say the convention was
that's interesting because I mean, it's been that way in that hall for years, and it's difficult to hear, but I've never that's interesting that
there were multiple large 40K things kicking off at the same time there. Oh, there's one that started at 9, which was, I think, the friendly tournament or the friendly team tournament. And then there was the Longmore doubles, and then there was kill team. And there was just a lot going on there.
Wow.
Part of it was probably my exhaustion. Part of it was the noise and the dryness. But like by the end of this game, my voice was gone. And this is like I've been at Adepticon less than 24 hours, and I've lost my voice, and it did not come back.
Wow.
So like that was kind of a rough go of the morning. The game ended up being a super close game. Like it was neck and neck. They ended up ending the round 30 minutes before they had said.
Why not? The rest of the schedule's wrong.
Yeah,
to me, that's.
But the plan of the day too ended up being like, we're going to go from 10 until 10. I was like, that's 12 hours.
Yeah.
And like, why didn't we start at 9 and like cut out some of this extra time? So anyways, so it all got screwed up. I didn't have the best time because of the event itself. The game we played was pretty fun.
The game's fine, but the event was a problem.
And I should say the guys we were playing against were both Imperial Fist. So it was kind of one cohesive army, but they were running 2 different formations in there. Just having played in a game of 40K in kind of a more tournament environment against random people and a team game, especially where you're dealing with multiple formations, like there is a lot going on in there. Yeah. So I actually backtrack everything I've said previously about missing the extra layers of like chapter tactics and things like that this type of event. Like even just having my faction, Cheyenne's faction, and both these guys' factions, like there was a lot going on.
And not to mention by themselves, team games take longer because
absolutely.
Okay.
So it was a super close game. I think the end of it, we had to stop at the top or end of 4.
Okay.
But had we gone into 5, like we were on our 3 objectives. So I think we lost the game by 10 points.
Okay.
But had we gone 5 turns, I think we actually would have won the game. If not, like it would have been like a 2-point game. It was super close because we had all the objectives at the end of the game, and of course we didn't get to score that final turn.
Were you the last? Like you were going second?
Yes, we were.
You almost should have counted those because at the end of a 5th round, if you're the last player, you're getting
exactly.
So
they didn't count their beginning of turn.
Oh, okay.
5th turn, but like we actually would have gotten some extra points because of positioning and things. Right. So anyways, it was a fun game, but that environment and just kind of the tournament vibe to it and
losing
terrain
your voice
setup and losing my voice and
the time issues.
We opted
time is an issue for me.
We opted to not continue in there, and we decided we're like, we were happy to continue, but we decided instead if Adon and Aaron were on the same page, just because we don't get to actually play each other that much, we would drop out and actually just play them list that we had did. And that's exactly what we ended up doing.
Cool.
Yeah. Which
Cheyenne's a good player though.
Yeah.
Like he really understands the ins and outs of his Blood Angels, right? So yeah. So he really understands like this is how these things synergistically work together for me to achieve these.
And I think our list, but also play styles, like we did pair very well. Like I think we're both smart players in how we approach the game and more like tactical and like can see where things need to happen on the board in order to get the results as far as like getting the points, but having fun while doing it at the same time. Not just chasing a win. So we ended up dropping out, and we did play a game against Aaron and Adon, who were doing their joint Grey Knights list.
Right.
Which that was a super fun game.
Do you know why they dropped out? Same kind of.
I think largely because we had asked if they wanted to get a game, and especially like with Adon being in Southern California.
Right. We rarely get to.
Now, haven't played a game of 40K with him in a while, and even Aaron being so close, when we're playing games, we're usually playing Necromunda or board games or something like that. Not a lot of 40K.
How did their Grey Knights do?
I think they lost their first game, but I think it was a pretty close game also for them. And they played, from what they were saying, 2 really, really fun opponents. Like they had a really good first game.
Good.
But I think that it was a kind of a narrow loss for them, to my recollection.
How did your guys' game go with them? You and Cheyenne won.
It was super fun. Me and Cheyenne definitely won. It was interesting because they had 2 land raiders and a bunch of like purgation squads, some paladins, some
stuff's teleporting all over the place.
So they have cool movement shenanigans that they're able to jump around. But the first turn, they get first turn and they just kind of rush forward towards the middle. And Cheyenne and I are both playing largely assault armies. So that's kind of perfect for what we need to do. I think our first secondary objective we get is bring it down. So turn 1, we're able to kill 2 land raiders.
Oh my goodness.
And that is half of their army. Or
Yeah,
like,
that's a lot of points
20,
in their army.
That's more than 25% of their army just in those 2 land raiders that we're able to take out, and we get the points for that.
Oh my God, I would hate you guys so much.
we take a very commanding lead on points and keep the lead going the whole game. So points wise, the game was always very much in our favor, but we had a great time, just a lot of friendly back and forth.
Very cool.
And, Adon's really fun to play a game of 40K with because he brings all kinds of extra things. Like he has a little MDF prison that he puts in, so dice that like betray him he throws in this prison, and like he's got his battle pouch of all the dice he's got in there, and it's just it was really fun to
How are you communicating at this point if your voice is gone?
It was very hoarse. It was there, but I was saying this at some point in the con. Like I sounded like an 11-year-old kid going through puberty who smokes 12 packs a day at the same time. That was my voice. So it's like
chain smoking puberty,
deep and gravelly and squeaky at the same time in the worst possible way. So I apologize to everybody who came up and said hi to me, and my voice was atrocious.
Well, listen, I'm glad it's back now because we wouldn't have done this episode.
We had threatened to record on Monday, but obviously you were still in Australia. But yeah, it took me like a week to get my voice back.
All right.
Yeah.
So what are you doing during this?
This was my cruise around the vendor hall day because I didn't have anything scheduled. And then ended up connecting with my friend Tom, who my brief stint at doing like box art and painting for MegaCon games. He was their lead sculptor and like kind of project manager for sculpting and miniatures at that time. So it's somebody I catch up with, and we ended up kind of haphazardly bumping into each other, and then spent just a huge chunk of the day hanging out and walking around the vendor hall. And it's an entirely different group of people that he knows that are a lot of, it's the more artistic side of the hobby community. So it's fun to walk around with him and then meet, Patrick Keith, who does totally bombshell miniatures, and all these kind of smaller press people who their reach is a lot bigger in the community than whatever it is they're producing. Like I think Dave Taylor's probably for our show is for this show is maybe the best example of Dave's reach into the hobby community is huge
and deep.
Yeah. What does Dave make in the community is kind of small and niche, like the actual product, but he himself has this huge kind of coverage. Yeah. And so in terms of sculpting and miniature design, Tom knows all those kind of people. So it's fun to wander around with him. And he's just a lovely, kind human being. So, he's one of those like that family reunion thing. This is one of the people like I really look forward.
That's awesome
to spending time with. And so just really spent the day chit chatting with him, and then going and this was my big vendor hall day, really.
Which is, like I tend to walk the vendor hall once, right? Kind of looking at stuff. And then like I find myself going back each day multiple times. Oh, I remember these guys, and then I spend a little more time looking, and it's not just you do one pass and you're done.
Right. There's this was also the day that I played Alpha Strike with Campos and got lunch with him, which was rad.
Nice.
So this was just hang out and visit and schmooze with people day.
Yeah.
And then knowing that this was my vendor hall day, I also made sure to go get the demos. I'd specifically been like, I want a demo of this. I want a demo of that. Tried to make sure to go. And so that was when I went to go see James ran me through a demo of Fallout Factions, which was great. The guy's got just a gift for taking a few mechanics and then making a really deep and rich experience out of just a couple really interesting mechanics.
Adeptus Titanicus.
Yep. Blitz Bowl's the same thing. You get 3 actions. That's it. It's like
sing this game
somehow.
There's so much of the DNA from other games that like Titanicus and Blitz Bowl and
brought into Fallout.
Necromunda, into Fallout. Yeah. Which is really cool to kind of see it all come together.
It's an alternating activation, but each character gets 2 activations, and you can either split them or keep them together.
Is the same company doing the Skyrim game?
I believe
I feel like what's the name of the company?
Modifius.
Yeah, they're doing Skyrim as well.
And they have it's interesting because Modifius also has a big
the miniature. So there's a board game for it that I backed, right? Which we played once and we were like, Shell's not. I want to give it another go, but there's a miniature war game for it as well.
I did not realize that.
And the models are sick looking. They're really good.
So yeah, and this is new that this Fallout Factions is the first James Hewitt game. Like that's his thing. So they had other people doing design before that.
Are you a fan of Fallout? Like, have you ever?
I'm aware of it.
Oh,
I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to be just really candid and honest, the miniatures
didn't do it for you.
Didn't do it for me. The game seems great. It's James. It's designed to be a campaign skirmish play. So there's a lot of parallels to Necromunda.
I mean, they have their own style.
Yep.
Right.
And
it doesn't necessarily appeal to everybody.
It's a very specific style that for me doesn't do it. It's not a lack of quality.
Yeah.
Right. They're quality
it's just
product.
But that aesthetic is prevalent throughout the Fallout games.
Yeah.
And the show that's coming out on Amazon,
which I'm very excited to watch.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty funny because he ran me through the demo, and Campos, because we just come off of lunch, we're hanging out. And then as that demo wrapped, somebody else started just kind of hanging out and then asked a question, and I kind of just faded away. And it was like, because it was
did that Homer Simpson.
Yeah. And it was perfect because, I mean, James running me through a demo wasn't the same as like, hey, I'm selling you the game. It was more in lines of like, let's talk about design and why I designed. And like, it's a little bit different conversation.
What is the demo? What forces were in the demo? Brotherhood of Steel.
Oh, you would know this better than I do. I'm drawing a total blank right now.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
None of like the heavy.
I don't think it was.
It was.
So that's Brotherhood of Steel.
It was not Brotherhood of Steel.
Yeah, kind of.
So it's probably like some
just
vault dwellers,
scrap gangs, scrubs. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I'm curious about it because I really like this aesthetic. So
yeah,
I have to check that out.
I haven't played Fallout since Fallout 2, so I'm not as into it as like the newers.
Yeah, having just returned to the world of video games, I am very curious. But yeah, that was my day, was getting to hang out with Campos in the morning. I slept in. Josh absconded early, and I was like, oh, sweet. Well, I get to get over my jet lag right now. And I slept in, and boy, did I. Like for me, I was like, oh, I have fully flipped and I am good. And I got lots of sleep and meandered my way in for lunch. And yeah, it was just a super chill day, but again, a day of getting to spend the time saying hey to people.
So that's Friday.
Friday
that's all
evening,
day
we all got together. A pretty big group of us got together for dinner and drinks at the kind of the main hotel, not the bar, but in the restaurant area there. And it was just a good time of hanging out and talking trash and
so much
giving Don a hard time.
It's the best.
Yeah, it was a really just good kind of quality, have a meal, hang out, catch up with friends, talking smack.
Aaron was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that rules from Blood Bowl 7's Aaron.
Yeah, that's right.
You'll understand what that was. Just it was the dumbest. Sorry for the inside joke, but that was the dumbest. Like, it was just this moment that was great for talking trash to each other. So that was for you, Aaron.
All right. So moving. Yeah, I was going to have him here, but he's traveling right now.
And then I said real quick after dinner, we just went downstairs to the Table War charity kind of the get together.
the gathering.
They were having the gathering and played a couple games.
Did they do Liar's Dice?
There was Dyer's Lice going. I taught Cockroach Poker,
Did
which
you
is
say Dyer's Lice?
maybe.
And Cockroach Poker is
Liar's
always a
Dice.
good one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you haven't played Cockroach Poker, you should. It's a small game. It's a little card game. Get it on Amazon. It's fun.
Yep, it is.
Fun, simple. My voice was fully gone there. I was trying to drink some whiskey to burn out the receptors and maybe get a voice back, and it kind of worked. But
The punch at the
that
they have the con exclusive punches and stuff. And it was, that helped a little, but yeah, you were shredded at that point. It was good. That's right. That dinner was a lot of fun.
That was fun. Yeah, it was a long dinner of all just hanging out, catching up, and talking.
Those are my favorites.
Yeah, it was. Really
I'm so jealous. Yeah. Okay, so now Saturday rolls around.
Saturday's the day.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the Legions Imperialis day.
You're doing Legions Imperialis, both of you.
Yes.
Okay. So walk me briefly through, because we're 45 minutes into this. Walk me briefly through, like, what was your experience like? You played how many games?
Three games of Legions Imperialis for the day.
Okay. Did not play each other.
We did.
Oh, you did?
Yes. Because it's a narrative event, and the Horus Heresy narrative events are just wonderfully done. They have the interactive map that's 3D, and the guys put on a great show.
Were they using that
So
same
it's
hex
the
map?
same hex map that they used for. So the first 2 days of the event were Titanicus based, which had set kind of where the narrative was kicking off from for the Legions Imperialis Day to kind of wrap things up for the overall narrative. And it was a very tight game at that point as far as the overall narrative. I think traders were up a point was like
a couple points
to 11, something like that. Very, very close. So Titanicus had been very balanced, and then Day of Legions Imperialis
not so much.
Swung it pretty hard into the trader's favor.
I will say, to the credit of these event organizers, we started more or less on time. It was a few minutes late.
The time was right.
Yeah, more or less on time.
But at least the start time was right.
But the start time of like, let's start checking people in and moving through. And the discussion around, hey, this is Legions Imperialis. It's a new game.
Yep.
This is a new game to us. This is the mindset we want you taking in.
Smart.
There was a briefing at the beginning, not only of the narrative, but of like, hey,
you got to set the tone.
Yeah, and it was really well done.
But
I
also,
was very appreciative of that.
Part of that poll and that discussion was who has played a lot of games. So like some people raise their hands. And
that's really
some people
handy.
have not. And like, do you want to play somebody who's very experienced, or do you want to not play somebody who's very experienced because it couldn't lead to a more lopsided game?
Right.
They don't want to have a learning moment or a teaching.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really thoughtfully done for a game that is brand new.
Last year, their Titanicus stuff was fantastic.
Yeah. They do a great job.
Yep.
Not just saying that because Josh and I crushed it.
That doesn't hurt.
And for participation, I was able to get not a location dice, but a reactor dice that's different color. Like they did last year was a location dice. So it's not just all the gold Titanicus dice. So I did.
That's so handy.
Get to pick up one of those for my Titanicus collection, which
very cool.
Will be very useful.
Oh, is that what that was for?
Yeah.
Because you can never.
Did you take one?
Because you can never figure out.
Well, if you ever play.
Someday.
All right. Well, cool.
Event was great.
3 games.
3 games. My first game was a little bit weird. And I don't know. I honestly, this is one of those, like, I don't know how I feel about it still. So the person I played against was very excited about the game, but had not brought an army. So they borrowed an army from somebody else there that they didn't design.
And so they weren't familiar with it.
And they also had never played the game before.
They were just excited about it.
They were excited about it and read the rules a lot and had a lot of knowledge about, 40K and other games, GW game systems.
But I have to tell you right now. Listen, I'll stop you right there. If you're going to an event like this, you need to have played the game before. I do not think that is the time to learn how to play the game, regardless of your experience in other games. I just don't think that's the appropriate environment for that. That puts a lot onto the person you are playing against.
Yeah.
Who's not there to really teach you the game.
Right.
Like they're there to play.
And especially when Astartes and Solar Ox play
totally different.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the special rules for each gun matter a lot.
Yeah. Like going up to this US Open, right? I have played 1 game with my Black Legion so far, and certainly not my 2,000 point Black Legion. You better believe I'm going to have played a lot more games with my Black Legion before I step foot in there, just because I don't want to drag that down.
Right.
I want to be able to speak from I played 2 games, and 1 game was against Shell, and I realized I was doing a rule wrong that really swung things in my favor. And so, I strongly feel that's the wrong time.
Yes.
And I appreciate that the person's excited about playing.
And they were a lovely person.
And I appreciate all that.
Kind enough. And in a game
setting. Did they tell you right up front, like, I haven't played a game yet?
Yeah, they were walking around asking if somebody could let them borrow an army.
Oh.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they showed up and their friend was like, I have an army I'm not going to use. No, you should not be in this event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they were lovely. They were knowledgeable about the rules to a point, but hadn't taken it through their paces.
Yeah.
And in a game setting where we knew going in that, like, hey, this is going to be a time crunch to get through your game.
Yeah. That's even worse.
I only played 2 turns of my first game.
That's disappointing.
And so
I think that's true of most.
But a lot of games only went 2 turns.
That was my one critique of the event is that the round times were only 2 hours and 15 minutes. And a 2,000 point game, realistically, if you know what you're doing, is going to take 3 hours.
Okay. So I think the big takeaway there for listeners is if you're going to an event, 1, have an army. It could be your friend's army that you're bringing, fine, whatever, but know how to play.
Have some familiarity with your army.
It's not fair. That's not fair.
Yeah, it definitely was not the experience it could have been. It wasn't a bad experience.
I get you.
But it was not what I went to do.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Also did do some eyebrow raising that, like, in clearly knowing the game better than the person I'm playing, there should be some advantage there, and started having some eyebrow raises at, again, I limited myself to bringing what was available models wise.
Oh, but now you're dealing with a bunch of printed stuff
and was losing pretty badly and going,
this shouldn't be happening.
like, I know I'm doing the right things and it's not mattering.
Right.
They were Alpha Legion or Sons of Horus? I think they were Alpha.
Sons of Horus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
they had the Sons of Alpha.
Yeah.
Horus Legion. They had the bolter rerolling thing going on, and that came up once or twice. But was a nice enough person. But again, I think that's the framing I want to put on it is it was not the experience I signed up for. It was the event organizers could have stepped in and said,
listen,
hey, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but not.
Yeah.
That's weird. It's weird to me.
It was unusual and yeah. So,
Josh, how did your first
excitement off the new game is really
and
what was driving that.
And also their tone of like just wanting to try it out and
cool. Try it out.
Yeah.
Let's set up an open game for later. Is anybody interested in showing me how to play this game?
Because some people had dropped out because they were not able to get. This was a fully painted requirement for this tournament, which obviously in a new game there was a push to get stuff painted.
And most of the armies looked fantastic.
Incredible.
It was
they
awesome.
usually do.
Yeah.
This is probably the same crowd that's doing the Adeptus. Titanicus, and probably even migrated over from some of the Horus Heresy stuff where that is really
specialist games.
Excels. Yeah.
People, this is not their first game for the most part.
Your first game was fantastic, though.
Yeah, I had an incredible first game. I played against a guy named Doug who had played 2 or 3 games at this point, so still newer, but knew the framework well enough that the rules lookup were minimal. I was able to answer the few questions that showed up, or I think we ended up looking up like 1 or 2 rules for the entire game. Sure. We still only got 2 turns in just because it was
again the
first game. He was newer to it, and the first 2 turns of the game take time. The next 3 turns go very quickly. So you are playing 75% of the game in your first 2 turns.
Is that because units
everything
are destroyed?
dies?
Yeah,
everything
okay.
dies.
Yeah, you go and pick up some stuff. Yeah.
So Doug was playing White Scars, and part of my curiosity in seeing what other armies we'd bring there is I was facing against a Warlord Titan, which is a huge deal in Legions Imperialis. This
a lot
is
of
like
Titans
a 600
in the event.
Really?
Yeah.
2,000 point?
Yeah.
Because people needed them to pad their points, I think.
It's the painting, I think, more than anything.
I was just coming to that conclusion. It's that, and also probably units not available unless you were 3D printing them. So
that said, the Warlords are not bad.
No, they're hard to kill.
Has it made you rethink?
For a fun game, I will. For an event, I still probably wouldn't bring them because they are such an investment of activations and points that I think you are at a disadvantage for having it big picture.
Okay.
But yeah, a friendly game, absolutely. 100% I would bring a Warlord or even a War Master and just like, let's dance, let's have fun. I don't think War Masters are killable in a game.
I will also say, Josh, every time you dump a ton of points into something like that and have a lower model count, it never seems to go well for you.
Yeah, exactly. Especially an alternating activation game like that. Like it makes such a big deal. So he was White Scars. He had all the jet bikes that were printed. He had speeders that were printed and a Warlord Titan. Knowing that we weren't going to have a lot of time to get into those later turns of the game where positioning and like objectives are going to make a huge difference. Like I just very aggressively pushed forward, grabbed all the objectives, and like points were very clearly in my favor. Had we played a full game, like I probably wouldn't have had anything left.
But you played to the turns.
Because the Warlord Titan is devastating. Like first shot of the game is 4 Kratos tanks dead. Like
holy smokes.
And Kratos tanks stick around. Like they are the hardest thing Marines
I'm glad
have
Titans
on offer.
Work how they're supposed to.
Yeah. And it was very fitting. I think the Warlord pushes the level of damage output higher, more so than a Reaver for that like 200 point difference. I think you're getting more of that offensive and staying power. So I think I got the Warlord. The shields were down, and I think it had 2 wounds left at the end of turn 2. Wow. So like, had we gone turn 3, I probably would have killed it, but he would have just decimated whatever I had left if he had gotten first turn. So it was a really fun back and forth. Points were definitely in my favor, but great game. Yeah.
So you won based on anticipating that you weren't going to get 3-4 turns in. I'm just going to rush forward and grab what points I can.
Jumped on the points quickly. Smart. And then was trying to focus as much as I could I wanted to kill a warlord. That was my goal. So.
Well, that would have been amazing.
Thematically, both thematically and event conscious, you built a list that was built to do that.
Yeah.
Like it was a maximum push forward list.
And Thousand Suns, like it is interesting as it sounds like they are really thematically a mobile infantry army. Like they want to arrive in armor. They want to dump guys out and they want to grab objectives. The psychic powers are very minimal in Legions Imperialis is the one complaint I have of the game is I actually wish that there was just a little bit more of that psychic representation, which may come in supplements. We'll see. Because my special rule doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very thematic. It just
you saved a guy.
I'd say, I might save one guy a game, and I was like, okay, it's on a 6. Okay. My second game was against a guy named David, who is actually a listener of the show. Super nice guy, really, really nice guy.
I like him already.
Yeah, and he had that really cool looking Ultramarines army that desaturated. It's kind of this muted blue Ultramarines army. Also had a Warlord Titan. Gorgeous, gorgeous army. Great opponent. Super fun game. I went into this game and I was like, the only thing I want to do is kill your Warlord Titan.
You're just focused on killing Titans.
Which is like the worst possible way to approach it. But I like knowing that I had Kratos tanks and Spartans that could focus on the Warlord and I had all the other stuff that could grab objectives. I was like, I'm going to overcommit and it's going to be awesome and it'll be fun.
Do Legions Imperialis Titans detonate like they do in...
They do. It's smaller, but they do, yes. Okay. So, yeah, part of me wanted to bring down the Titan.
Did that happen?
Had we gone turn 3 again, it would have. I think this one I got shields were down and got it. I think it was on its last wound.
Okay.
So just one more good shot or one more turn of shooting would have gotten it. But he did something really cool with his warlord is that he brought some of the graviton weapons, which are incredibly good at destroying structures. And
yes,
structures are very crucial for troops' survivability.
Because you put troops in them.
So he just detonated terrain. Like we were removing terrain and fistfuls of my models at a time. That
was a highlight of my first game. Same thing happened.
It was so fun. And like I had not seen that in the game yet. And like, I mean, I'm literally picking up a piece of terrain and 8 bases of guys that all die inside of that thing at the same time because I can't make saves because
it's a 6 up. I think for them.
It's hard.
I lost all of my Veltari in one building drop.
I lost all my missiles in one building, and then I lost like an entire tactical detachment in another. So, but it was really fun to see. Super fun game. Great back and forth. Really, really good opponent. I would 100% happily play David again if we ever saw each other again.
What was your second game?
My second game was against Zach, who was playing Solar Auxilia. So we got to have the Solar Ox game, which was a first for me.
How, in terms of army build, how different was his?
Totally different.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which he had a Reaver Titan.
Okay.
Had 2 the Marauder bombers. So the big bombers, which are supposed to be the cat's pajamas. Will probably be the next thing I add, because Sky has them, to my Legion's army. And it was a great game. It ended up being just a total riot of a game. First turn, it looked like he totally had me. Second turn, I got really lucky and shot down both bombers as they came in. And then we actually got through the third turn. And in the third turn, I was able to take down his Reaver. And when it exploded, it took out a gun emplacement that had really been a thorn in my side. Wow. There were guys like dug in, and when it blew up, it took out a bunch of them. He rolled terrible. So it was one of those.
Out a Titan.
It was a Reaver.
Was your
It was a Reaver.
It's
a Reaver.
It's a baby Titan.
I also threw 2 Vanquisher Layman Rust detachments and 4 Bane Blades shot
Holy
it.
Smokes.
So they did it in one turn.
Yeah, super heavy.
They had to put some oomph in it.
Yeah.
And it was a case of, frankly, I think he made better choices than I did, but I made a couple really clutch rolls and he had a couple really bad rolls at a weird time.
Yeah.
And so it just tipped in the middle of turn 2, and then turn 3, I was able to kind of push back.
Wow.
And it was so fun to get to play Solar Ox versus Solar Ox. And I asked him when we wrapped up and we'd kind of played back through and had some laughs. Great opponent, especially when you have that game of like some really clutch rolls just go against you.
Yeah.
Was able to roll
showed
with
up
it.
with an army.
That was a noticeable improvement. But he'd played quite a bit, so he was more familiar with the rules than I was, and I had enough games under my belt that I knew what my stuff did well.
Yeah.
And I'd asked him because he'd largely been playing against Marines, and I said, "Hey, how do you feel the matchup is?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's uphill." He's like, "I have a really hard time right now fighting Marines. Like my list is built specifically to fight Marines."
Right.
And he goes, it is like there's because of what's available, there's a little bit of a discrepancy right now. It feels like the short version is rhinos are amazing
Transports.
and I think as of right now, they're just becoming available is a viable transport option for Solar Auxilia. So you have to like build weird formations to have table control. So it'll even out in time, I think.
Early to run events for this game.
I think now, no.
It
a month ago,
on
yes.
The style of event too. Like, the only reason I say that is because looking at Tacoma Open and what GW is doing for this, knowing that it's a new game, people haven't played a lot, they've already scaled down points wise. They're also not calling it a tournament. They're very specifically calling it a melee. So there's kind of 3 approaches for players, and this is like naturally it's going to segment through gameplay. It's like if you're there to win, like you'll be in the winner's bracket, and you're going to get some like probably tight competitive games. If you're just there for the hobby, there's like the painter's bracket, and then there's everybody else, obviously, which should just be like sportsmanship and good times and like some familiarity. But it's not like they're not selling this as a competitive event whatsoever, and I don't think the game is meant for that.
Yeah, but it also feels like it's just not there yet either, right? Like you literally can't buy units.
Yeah.
40K, they don't put out units you can't buy now.
Right.
Right. For very specific reasons. So it actually...
I think they need to prioritize putting out the core box tanks separately.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think you'll get a lot of stuff that way. But also like Solar Auxiliary definitely need transports, and they need transports that are not resin Arvis sliders. They need the plastic Draconis or whatever they're called, and the plastic lighters, which are coming. They have shown, but they're just not here.
It's just interesting. I mean, like I've not known a game like that where it's sounding, again, I haven't played yet. It's sounding like it's not mature enough for that kind of event yet.
There's some lack of tools. And I will say that, so to move to our third game, I will proudly say in the second round of this event, I think I was the only Solar Auxilia, or I was the only Loyalist player who won their game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It suddenly had gotten very lopsided.
The way the campaign works, it's not a progressive scoring. So you can actually lose points if you lose control of territories. So going into the morning, it was 10 to 11, something like that. End of the second round, it was like 20-8. End of the third round, I think it was 25-8.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it went real pear-shaped real fast for the Loyalists.
Good day for traders.
But. Yeah. So I was like, there's a fun little mechanic of you have a token that during the event you put and move around the map. And
again, this was the same map. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And it was like, all right, Loyalists who won, go ahead and do this. And I like leaned in and was like,
anybody else?
Sweet. Boop. I'm going to fade back again. So for our third game, because things were so lopsided and we hadn't done it, Josh and I were like, and there was people were pairing off, and it kind of came down to
three-way system of people had just played that person, just the way the map ended up playing in earlier pairings had happened.
So you guys chose
there's multiple pairings of people that were going to play somebody they had just played. So we're like, all right, well, we'll just play each other.
Yeah.
Nice.
And Josh throttled me.
How many people would you say were playing in the event? I don't think we ever.
It was a 30-person event, and I would say there were probably 24. I think I would
about
guess
6 drops.
I would maybe 26.
Interesting.
It was it's still a good pile, but there's a handful of people that dropped largely, I think, because they weren't able to get their
stuff. It's a good number of
painted
people for a specialist game that's just out and not quite
and
ready.
I tell you, the wait list was super long, but because so many people were waitlisted, they were prioritizing painting other things and were not there to jump in to take advantage.
Yeah, a bit
of
aggressive.
So.
I'm curious if the rollout next year is way more. I'll bet it is.
Yeah. And I think they're actually talking to the event guys. They're, I think, planning on doing 2 days of Legions Imperialis and only 1 day of Titanicus, knowing that it's supported and there's a lot of people like super interested.
I'm so sad that a Titanicus is kind of not.
It's
going to be supported.
It's in such a great state as is. Like, I am fine with that if they don't come out with new stuff.
I'll still play it.
I will.
Like, it's one of the few games that
so
I would
years
consider quote unquote dead, but I'm still in. Like, I haven't played enough.
It's
of
a complete game. It's all it needs to be.
Super good.
There was really high interest. Like, it was every round had people walking up and asking questions about the game, and people were excited about it.
The terrain was incredible. The armies were incredible.
Tables are beautiful.
If you guys aren't watching the video, check it out. At least for some of the gameplay section here, because like the photos that we have of the game and the terrain, and they did an incredible job of integrating 3D prints with some buildings and some rocks and really good variety of stuff. The table that our third game that we played on, same table
the giant crane,
Avery, giant crane with like a tank track thing that was taking up 10% of the board just for this one giant like excavation.
It caught
thing.
Dave's attention.
He
was hatching some plans around it.
Dave's commissioning somebody to make a full size version of this thing, which is going to be the size of a table.
It's a table size tractor. And then from there, we grabbed a very quick bite. And got over to the Basement of Doom.
Basement of Death.
Basement of Death.
Yeah. They talked about you guys on their podcast.
Oh.
Yeah. They were like, Jody's terrible.
I was that night.
He was.
No, actually, they talked about
I lived.
Bourbon? Bourbon?
Yeah.
Whiskey?
Yeah.
There was sharing bourbon.
We're drinking some bourbon.
Heard you were a bourbon guy. And
I tracked down a bottle of it. It was a great bottle.
Very drinkable.
But so Basement of Death do the 3D Space Hulk thing we've talked about forever. I listened to their coverage of their own event, so it was kind of interesting to hear kind of behind the scenes and how they did it. But it was a whole new setup. Now it's a different scenario and everything.
They've redone all the models, all the terrain.
Thunderhawk sitting in the middle.
You are escaping the Inquisitor's ship that has been overrun by Gene Stealers now, and the Thunderhawk in the middle is your
escape vessel.
That's pretty sick.
As they detonate the ship behind you.
That's pretty cool.
Fight your way to the ship.
So the scenario is cool.
Really cool scenario. I did amazing. I had a great time, and then some other people did okay.
I got there. Chaplain Tuttlus representing again.
Yeah.
Oh, I heard.
Yeah, he was right across from me.
He flew us out.
He flew us out.
That's right.
I texted you.
Yeah, you texted me. I'm in Australia. I get this text. Hey, does Chaplain Tuttlus know how to fly a Thunderhawk? And I just reply, he's an expert Thunderhawk pilot. I didn't even know what you were doing. I'm just like, he's an expert Thunderhawk. There's nothing he can't do.
So for folks listening, it is all new.
Yeah.
Like the terrain is entirely new.
All printed.
Every Marine
Every
is Primaris Terminator-ified new.
Yep.
It is, and it is still the same amazing, just great experience. And when the guys we got to play with was just such a cool group of guys. And
had they played before?
Some had not.
That's great.
Yeah, blanking on his name, who actually supplied the bourbon. Super nice guy. He plays with them a lot. I'm blanking on the name right now. I apologize for that, but he actually plays with the Basement of Death guys a lot and has helped them do a lot of play testing to bring this iteration.
Very cool.
So they actually kicked it into hard mode for our group, knowing that he was part of this, and that ramped it up. And Jody paid the price of that.
In general,
terrible. It was allegedly just terrible blip luck that I got.
You got it stacked pretty
just
hard in the beginning.
Out the gate, it was just 3 pure strains, 3 pure strains, 3 pure strains. Some other people were killing termagants, that might be sitting next to me. No, you were able to get past the termagants. Way to go.
I had to kill two of the one Lictor, one Ravener, a bunch of pure strains.
Whatever. We're all impressed.
The thing I
didn't even use a single fuel of my heavy flamer.
I'm just glad you lived.
The thing I love about
I earned my sticker
that event
last year.
Is it the same sticker though?
It is. Yeah.
The thing I love about that event though is that they are great at gearing it towards here's people who've never played before. Here's a mix of people. Here's people who know what they're doing, and
allegedly
always make it fun. They're the greatest group of guys that run that, and the level of commitment that they do to run that event year after year, I cannot thank them enough for what they do. And again, not only the dinner like that you guys had that I super upset I missed the BattleTech pod, but this is the thing I always we go to.
Well, and testament to it is it was gone immediately.
Yeah. Immediately.
Yeah. So I got to give
we should have shut up about it on the show.
A little bit.
I already sent Troy a message, but thanks to Troy and Ben and John and those guys for letting it. This was a special session they were putting on in addition to
which they're already exhausted running.
Yeah. Yeah. So huge thanks for them for letting us in. Raph was in our group too, who's a huge kind of champion of our community, especially on the Discord side of things.
Yep.
Like great to meet him in person.
Yep.
And cool just to all bring all these great guys together for one.
I know
huge
Aaron
shared
and
experience
Don got in a game of it.
Yeah.
I'm glad everybody got to do it.
I was glad I was dying because it gave them something to heckle. Yeah. That's why I started. Because
they came over and hung out with you guys, right? Yeah.
It was great to just watch.
I'll
my
never
guys get
forget.
plucked off.
I'll never forget last year when Shell was like, "Well, can I play the Gene Stealers?" And they're like, "Yeah." And then she just went after Josh
She just
so hard.
destroyed me.
So every time she'd kill somebody, she'd cackle. Yep. It's great, man. I'm jealous that I didn't get to do the inaugural new mission.
Yeah, it was super fun.
But next year there's always next year.
There's always next year.
So, and those guys have been like Shell wanted to run an event like that at KublaCon, and they were like, "We'll ship you the stuff, and you just ship it back." And I'm like, I don't know if I want to be responsible for that.
The new stuff, packs up really well and lays out. And they had some cool
that's right.
LED rope integrated into the.
He had said on his show
pretty neat.
that it just before it was all bubblegum and and dental floss holding everything together, and now it goes together a bit
all
better.
had like snaps and hooks that snap into each other.
It looked so. Did you guys help put it away at then?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it went to because I remember last year we helped them put it away, and it was like, everything has to
broke down super easy.
That is cool.
Just stack it like kinds, and
that is so cool.
Yep.
Yeah, they were even this year. It was nice because it was pull this apart and make a pile of that, pull this apart and make a pile of that, pull this apart, make a pile of that, and they had it like the 4, 5 6 quadrants of the board. Each one was kind of its own crate.
Yeah,
just I
got its own tub.
It was really neat.
Yeah, I think they do a lot to bring people. Like they run that event every year. They do a lot to bring people. Like they deserve some kind of award for this. So
I think so.
Yeah,
absolutely. I want to think on that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Saturday was an incredible long day, 4 games in the day, but 4 really fun, really satisfying games that I survived all 4 of them and had just an amazing day of gaming. That was definitely this is the day I wanted to go
as
big
your
on
throat
games
is,
and had an amazing day.
As your voice is going.
Yeah, and I couldn't talk the entire day. So
I think it was in between was when we got to catch up with Dan.
Yeah.
That's right. Between these 2 events.
At our quick dinner, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Got a quick
catch up with
who
Dan
was dominating at Blood Bowl at that time.
Yeah, Dan Boyd caught up with him for 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Got the good news.
For the 40K Badcast?
Yeah. Incoming Boyd spawn. And
Boyd spawn. Boyd spawn. Well, very cool. Very cool. And then Sunday was the get out of Dodge or...
Well, late. We had a late flight.
Yeah, we had a really late flight. So Sunday for me, I'll go real quick, was Sunday for me was my big walk. Oh, so I would say first thing, Dave Taylor and I were supposed to play a small game of 40K on Sunday.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. I saw that he had played again. You and I were watching his live stream the other day. I was like, how often are you playing actual 40K?
So
he usually doesn't.
They did their big Tale of 4 Warlords that they've been painting up towards. That was their big showcase Saturday, and they were playing the game until 2 a.m. And then Dave didn't get to bed till 3 a.m. and then slept poorly. So he sent me a message early
I can't
Sunday.
Do it.
And he's like, not happening. next year, next con. So we'll get a game in next time. But we all got together for breakfast. We went to, I don't remember what it's called. Huckleberry, something like that.
Yeah, it was we had one of those amazing drivers who knew everything about everything. This is 2 years in a row I've gotten one of those, and they're great. And it sounds, when I say everything about everything, it sounds negative, but it's great. They tell you, go here, don't go here, get this, don't go there.
In the best possible way.
Yeah, so we went and grabbed breakfast with...
it's the whole crew. Yeah, we all got together.
Adon and Campos and Cheyenne.
And Aaron. And I guess, Sky and Craig were not there.
Right. So that was late Sunday morning.
Yeah.
We were both like, okay, that was a good day. So let's
So our chill day.
And then you did the vendor hall.
Yeah,
and
after
demos.
breakfast, I was walking around the vendor hall, and this was me really just diving into the skirmish game set, see what else is out there. Ended up talking with James Hewitt for like 45 minutes, watched him run a demo for somebody else, and I was like, I'm not going to make you run another demo of this, but then I just talked to him about some design stuff and had just a great time chatting, catching up with him briefly over that stuff. And then wandering the hall, ended up meeting Gav Thorpe, who obviously
nice.
I've known of and like been reading about him. And like, he was the kid in White Dwarf when I was the like even younger kid growing up. So like now seeing him.
Gav's super nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he was asking about you and like, yeah, it was a great time of this. I guess this was the closest like fanboy moment that I had out of the con of like, I had never met him in person, but I've known of him and like been familiar with his work and just his involvement with things, especially reading the White Dwarf battle reports and things like that in the 90s.
Yeah.
So finally, like making the connection was a pretty cool moment.
That's
and talking
awesome.
about the new game that him and Andy and
I took him and Alan Bly and a couple other people out to dinner one year when I went out there. And he's such a lovely guy.
Yeah. And then I got to my buddy Tom that I mentioned earlier has a really just lovely little line of very cute little goblins, and he wants to develop a game around them. And so he got to take me through his alpha
Work in progress.
Yeah. But his production level, because artist, is pretty stinking high. And the game is fun because it's about goblins running amok as opposed to like, let's fight and kill each other.
Right.
So you're trying to steal vegetables out of a halfling's crop.
Amazing.
And then run away.
I'm already in.
The corgi who's watching the
my God.
farm is getting alerted as you're coming in, causing mischief. And then he's going to chase after you and you got to get the veggies and So I was able to give him some feedback on
Shell is already going to buy this game.
Maximum shenanigans.
I'll make sure we get a link in the show notes to his used to be Effigy Miniatures. I think he has changed the name of his company, but yeah, just super fun little character full models. And it's early on. I don't know when he wants to, I think he was saying fingers crossed, maybe next year he could have a little something ready to go for Adepticon.
Shell would be in on that, especially as soon as you said the corgi.
Yeah, it was so fun, and it's so special when it's somebody that's a friend of yours that you've known for years that is bringing all of their just fun little whimsical models they sculpt
ideas
to this game, and was very excited about. I think there's room right now in the hobby for games that aren't just about blowing each other up.
Yeah. That's actually a very unique take on something.
Yeah. So that was my last day. And then the last like, oh, that was rad piece was going to the airport, which sounds weird.
Yeah. That was awesome.
So everybody's flight seemed to be out at these same late flights. Funny enough, as I was going through the TSA check-in, I didn't have pre-boarding. So I had to walk through the commoners line. Mm-hmm. But one row over from me was Dan Boyd. So we did couldn't really talk to each other, but kept walking by like, hey, hey. But then after that, we all met at our gate, and it was not only our kind of local extended crew.
Yeah.
But then Dan Osborne, who I had never actually sat and met,
he's a great
which
guy.
was weird.
Super nice.
I mean, Josh said it right away. He's like, yeah, somehow your guys' friend circles, like within the hobby, really overlap, but you just haven't.
Dan is also doing a class on painting a Titan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He'll be in Santa Cruz.
A night or a Titan? I think it's a night.
June.
A night.
Yeah.
I think.
There. If you're on our Facebook group, I think he was just talking to me yesterday, and he said, "Oh, do you mind if I post this?" I said, "No, please do. I'll make sure we pin that post for the dates and times because I think they still have a few openings." So, dude, that guy knows how to paint, and knows how to teach painting.
Yeah.
So
we're supposed to throw down for a game of Titanicus when he's in town. So
he's cool.
Hopefully that
he is super cool.
Yeah.
So we ended up, my wife and I actually were in Portland last week, and that's his stomping grounds. And so he was checking in on me the whole time I was there. We had a very whirlwind, just a couple day trip.
I saw that.
To sightsee. But the whole time we were there, he was checking in and giving us recommendations and just, and so there was a whole group of, a half a dozen of us sitting at the gate.
Yeah,
just Dan Roberts.
Dan Roberts was there.
None of us, I didn't, like everybody was like,
I ran into him for Sunday, 9 years straight. And we looked at each other. We were actually at I think it was at the Fallout game. Like we looked at each other and looked back and they were like, oh, hey, somebody
That's
he lives in
funny.
Los Gatos. So
Yeah.
like we've known each other for, I don't know, 10 years also.
That's so funny.
So we had one of those gatherings of folks at the airport right before we
Ivan
left.
was on our flight. We got to see Ivan a bunch during the con. His buddy Christian was there. There was a bunch of Golden Demon painting drama, which was interesting to overhear some of it.
Yeah,
And
there always is.
there was a guy from GaryCon. I think you ended up talking to quite a bit.
It was
He
a San
like,
Jose guy who
what
had
do
been
you
up at
guys-
GaryCon.
like,
Tom,
No, funny enough, not Tom.
because Tom was at GaryCon.
Yeah, so it was another one of those. And then Josh's bad travel mojo whammied us, and we got in a little later. But it wasn't a big deal. It was
We had
an hour and a half delay.
changed planes completely. Whatever plane we were supposed to be on just didn't happen.
On our
so,
flight to, and I'll talk about this in our Patreon episode, but on our flight out to Sydney, we flew from San Francisco to Honolulu, got on the plane, and then an hour goes by, and they're like, oh, there's this problem we're working on. They couldn't get fuel. Like they were like 3/4 of the way through the fuel, and then they had to fix the valve or something, and they couldn't get it done. And then it got to the point where it's like, now they can't do the flight. And so everybody get off, and they put us in a hotel for the night. And
enjoy a night in Hawaii.
look, there's rougher places to be stuck. So Shell and I went to Monkey Pod, and I got cranked on
Mike's hard.
Let's call back.
their Mai Tais.
Yeah,
That'll do it.
That
Their
is
Mai
a drink
Tais
that will do it.
awesome.
That's a lot of rum and sugar.
Yep.
That'll do it.
Anyway, yeah, that was not our only flight drama this whole time too. So 9 flights in 3 weeks.
yeah, you're
gonna,
bound.
you're going to reach some. So anyway, this sounds amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. I have a couple questions left, but let's do this. Let's take a short break. We'll come back to close out the show. I'll ask my questions there, and then we'll call it an episode. So, all right, we'll be right back. All right, we're back. We're closing out the show here. It's funny when you call a 2+ hour show short, but our shows
Comparatively.
tend to run about 3 hours. But I did have a few questions left for you guys about Adepticon, and so and some of these I think I prepared before we had the discussion, so I think you kind of answered some of them already. What has been the best Adepticon you've attended so far?
Well, unfortunately, I've only been to 2. So last year and this year.
Last year or this year?
High contention on both. They were both amazing shows. I would probably tip this year just a little bit ahead of it, largely because we had so many people there, so much good time of like just that in between downtime of just being able to hang out and catch up. And again, just having my network expanded so much in the last year and a half, 2 years, even since last Adepticon.
I think that's the magic of it.
Yeah, really. My friend network there is quite large, and like hanging around. Like part of the day, I was wondering on Sunday, I was hanging out with Sky, and like he has connections with all the people on like the vendor side of things, and like more of the artist side that he's setting up classes for, and like just all the different aspects of the hobby coming together, and such a really good, solid group of dudes and some amazing games.
Jody, what are your thoughts? This is your second, third.
Third.
Yeah.
This is third. As wonderful as it was to have Aaliyah join me last year. No, it was this year. This year was my favorite. And it's for a lot of the same reasons. I mean, getting to have that in-face time with James Hewitt, who is somebody that I've known for years online and had a regular communication with for, I think, 4 years now. That's really special. The Golden Demon this year was phenomenal.
Seeing the pictures, it was pretty impressive.
And yeah, I mean, it's always impressive. I was blown away this year.
Amory, submitted. Okay, submitted, and I think he got a like recognition thing for it. But his was the Adeptus Mechanicus guy power washing
of the
Dreadnought.
Redemptor Dreadnought,
right?
Yeah.
He sent that to me in advance. He was like, "Oh, look what I'm working on." I'm like, "Oh my god, this is brilliant."
Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. And I saw another show. Who was it? Somebody was looking at it on YouTube, and
Rogue Hobbies, I know, gave it a shout out also.
It might have been Rogue Hobbies. I think it was. And she was saying at first she was trying to figure out how the thing was away from the power washing thing, but it's actually attached to the it's clever.
Yeah.
It's clever.
Yeah.
It's super clever.
That's a very fun piece.
But as a person who has played Power Wash Simulator, and then they released the Warhammer thing for Power Wash, and so I reinstalled it to play that, I had an immense appreciation for his model.
Super fun,
I loved it. I loved it.
He put in like 4 pieces, so he was just painting away.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's
such a great guy.
Yeah, like,
So, okay, that's interesting too. Even though Aaliyah wasn't there, but Aaliyah had a lot of fun.
She did, and it was just that was a wildly different experience to do to be there with her versus this year to be there with my other partner in crime.
Yeah.
So yeah, this year for sure is.
What about next year? You guys gonna go next year? You're nodding.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
the only caveat for me is I'm going to be in Alaska like the week before. So unless there's some weird thing of travel scheduling, like I will, if I can
Get
be there,
stuck
I
in
will
an
absolutely
iceberg
be
like
there.
Captain America.
Yeah.
Yeah. March is always rough, but thankfully my work next year should be the same as my work this year. So I think I can tap on the work homie hubby Matt, and he covered for me. So
well, this is
we're okay.
Yeah, this is always my birthday weekend that it is. So
it's a good excuse to go.
So and Shell always wants to go. So both of us will be there next year. So now that we got this out of our system. So anyway, yeah, I'm so jealous, but at the same time, I had a great time. You know, in Australia, I got to see a lot of stuff I hadn't seen before, and we'll talk more about that on Patreon. But yeah, I'm really glad you guys had a good time. I'm really glad, and I'm jealous.
Fantastic show.
Quick shout out to one of our listeners that we didn't mention in there, Jose. Who got awarded is also one of Colin's kind of Colin Ward's students or works with Colin on his craft. Won best painted for the Horus Heresy.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
With his Space Wolves, and then
dude, that's an accomplishment because the Horus Heresy stuff is usually off.
Anyway, his stuff was beautiful. He was also the first person who, I don't know how, but he called me out across a room to like come and say hello.
Cool.
Yeah, like I've gotten recognized like once I'm standing with it, but like from across the room, heard, "Hey, Jody," and like turned and like some guy I don't know comes
like,
around,
hey, dude.
and it was
Super nice
just
guy in person.
the most like just effervescent, like charming, like just excited, and he was literally shaking because he was so excited that he'd won. Like he was showing me his models, and I was like,
"That's so exciting!"
And he was like, "Look, I'm still shaking." Like he just it was
That's
like
so cool.
a highlight for sure on a lot of levels to get to see him, because I think when I saw him, it was right after he'd won, and he was like,
you know what's funny?
It was gorgeous.
He got another call too. It was in Golden Demon entry, I believe.
I got an honorable
mention, and Rich Burrell for his night he put in. He got either
I saw
commendable or honorable also.
Yeah, a lot of
and he
folks
got
in
some
the
good
community.
feedback.
Yeah.
So it's funny you talk about him calling you out across the room, and I've told this story before where somebody came up to me. I don't remember who it was, and we were talking about what they're working on, and I go, "Oh, well, I'm working on this." They're like, "Yeah, I know." Like I listen to the show because we put it all out there, like what we're doing, we put it all out there. So I will share this. When we were in Australia, we went to the Australia Zoo, which is up near this place called Sunshine Coast, and that is the zoo that like Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, started. Right? He and I don't know if he started or his family did, but he ran it for many years. His wife Terry and their kids now run it. So that's Bindi and her husband, Chandler, and I'm drawing a blank on Steve Irwin's son's name at the moment. But for us, well, for Shell's big time into zoos. Like that is royalty, like for her. That zoo, like every time we go to see, she's like, well, you know, they have a zoo. And I'm like, oh God, you and the zoos. So there was no way we were not going to the zoo because it's like the crown jewel of zoos for her. And not being a zoo guy, I will tell you, it was really cool. Like, I'm not really an art guy, but then I went to the Louvre and I was like, I know what that is. I've seen that. Like, this was a really incredible experience. And the people at the zoo, so friendly and just so excited to be there and working there with the animals and stuff. So anyway, we get to the end of the day at the zoo, and it's been a long day. We've walked a lot. It's hot, humid. And, Shell says, "Oh, do you want to go to get some dinner? There's a restaurant owned by the zoo, which is outside the zoo and attached to like a bungalows that you can rent to stay there, and they're quite pricey. And I said, well, I'm not super hungry, but why don't we go see what's there? We'll have a drink or whatever. So we get there, and we're the only two people in the restaurant. It's a lovely restaurant. We have some drinks and we have a little bit of snacks, and I get up to go to the bar to pay the tab. And I'm standing there and I see like this cameraman walk in, which immediately I think of Josh because, this guy's got like, it's a legitimate like video camera, not just like something I don't. And another guy comes in and I can see they're like framing some shots and stuff like, they're doing promo material for the zoo and the restaurant, and so I could put out whatever. And next thing I know, I see this guy walk in and I'm like, that looks a lot like Bindi Irwin's husband. And then sure enough, Bindi Irwin comes walking in and they're like filming, like they're going to film this thing where they're talking to the gal that is the hostess. And well, how would you normally see people? Oh, well, we do this and I'd walk you over here. Okay, just do that. Just be yourself, blah, blah, blah. So I see this and like I yell across the restaurant to Shell. I go, Shell. And she's looking at her phone. She kind of looks up. I go, come here. Mm-hmm. And she like walks over and then she sees Bindi Irwin and she's like, oh my God. Like this is for her. Like this is the upper echelon of, I don't know if it's Henry Cavill for me, right? Like
zoo celebrities, eh?
Yeah. And so, I mean, her family, that family has done so much for conservation.
Yeah,
Shell's a big conservationist. She went to school based on all that stuff in geology and conservation. So anyway, so we watch them kind of film this thing and Shell's just like, I can't believe this. This is really cool. And the camera guy and the other guy are kind of over talking, and Bindi Irwin kind of turns around and looks at us and goes, oh, so how are you guys doing? And Shell's like, really good. And then she says, I'm such a fan of you and your father. I was a huge fan of your father. And Chandler goes, where are you guys from? And I said, well, we're from the US. We're from California. And he goes, oh yeah, I'm from Florida. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I immediately was
full
like,
circle.
Yeah, I immediately was like, oh yeah. I mean, because I just know this because Shell follows them.
Sure.
Yeah. Hadn't stopped talking about them the whole, visit to the zoo. And so I'm like, yeah, I know you're from Florida, okay, and I'm like, and I was like, oh, that was rude. I'm like, well, how do you like living here and blah, blah, blah. And so then finally I'm like, hey, can we get a picture with you? Like Shell wasn't going to ask. And I'm like, you're not going to get this opportunity again. And she's like, yeah. And she gave Shell a hug and we took a picture. I took a picture of them. Okay, great. We got to go. So we leave and Shell just bursts into tears. She gets out the door.
I'm so excited.
She was so excited.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that was like near the beginning of our trip.
Yeah,
so it was just like, oh my God.
All downhill from there.
Off to a great start.
No, tone setter. There it is.
So anyway, all right. Well, guys, thanks for sharing your experiences with Adepticon. Super appreciate it. I'm super jealous.
The only thing that could have made it better was if I had my voice and had you been there.
Aw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, you were missed. Your name was often
Shell would have
mentioned.
been there, and then it would have been cool.
Also, yeah.
But I'm sorry. What did you say?
No, you were mentioned a lot. If you haven't already heard it, you were often asked after, and
absolutely,
and your presence was noted.
Oh,
your lack
thank you
of presence was noted.
Well, I'll be there next year.
Also, everybody went like, but he's in Australia. I mean, come on.
I mean, life's rough.
Yeah.
In fact, during Dave Taylor's stream last night, he was like, "Oh, you're back from? And I said, we got to talk about Australia." He goes, "Yeah, we do." Because he being from Australia, and we saw the whole country almost. It's a big country.
All of it, the whole thing.
Well,
it's
the
nothing
coasts. We did the flyover states.
Did you make it to Tasmania?
No, but I did see a Tasmanian devil.
Did you go on a walkabout?
I did.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Quite a bit. So
You're a changed man.
all right. Well, listen, then I guess we'll wrap it up. Don't forget, we have a YouTube channel. We have a Facebook group. I meant to read, but we'll do it next time. We've gotten a lot of great reviews recently, and I super appreciate everybody who's left reviews recently for us.
Absolutely. It's great
on iTunes.
all those,
Yeah.
yep.
I sent them all over to Josh so he could see them. But we'll read a couple of those out next episode as well. I think I'll just continue to read a few of them out as each episode going forward. We have Table War Charities. I'll be at Nova Open helping support them. Herrick Games, we're going to next weekend, the 20th, not this weekend, but next weekend. They're moving to their bigger facility. I'm going to go up there for a few hours and help them move and
lend some more muscle. Jody and I had the pleasure of unloading the box truck showed up with all the slat wall and those things, I don't know how many 100+ pounds easily. Like
those things
I'm glad we were there.
They're probably at 150 pounds per wall the way that they're packaged because they're like covered in wood in order to protect the slat wall inside. So it was like a 3-man job of unloading these because the guy pulled up and he's like, "Do you have a forklift?" We're like, No.
Have you seen this town?
Yeah.
It's small. Anyway, Herrick Games, they're a great supporter of the show as well. So please take a look at them. We'll, as always, there's a link in the show notes to Herrick Games.
And patrons get discounts through Herrick Games. Extra discounts on top of their already discounted GW prices.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah. And we got a Patreon. So, okay. Well, I think that's it. I think we'll just wrap it up from there. So until next time, this is Carl.
This is Josh.
This is Jody.
And we're coming to you from the Astronomicon, where sometimes you miss out, but you really make out.
If you're not at Adepticon, you're at FOMO.
And it's not just catchy song lyrics. We wish you were here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much. This episode of The Independent Characters is protected by the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find information on the front page at theindependentcharacters.com.